You know, this revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well, then show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well, then stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man. You're a worm. You're afraid of us. You're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground, that we will match you and we will override you. And if that's what you're afraid of us, then tell us that just what you're afraid of. But don't keep hiding it from us and holding this up to us, and every time we ask you for something, you give us a little bit of something, and it's all tokenism. We don't want tokenism. And there are most black men in this world that don't want charity. And yet still every time we ask you for something, you give us a little piece, a little piece. You're playing games with us. We're not children. We're big men. I've seen my father have to put up with all kinds of stuff. He was a big man. He raised a family. He went down south, and he had to go around to the back door with his wife. We're not asking for anything. We're not asking for any favors. All we want is what's ours. Now, there are many black veterans who are coming back, and they're mad. They're angry. Do you think that they're going to sit down through this? Our fathers didn't have the knowledge that we had. They sat through it. But there are other black youth that are not going to sit through it. We know about Che. We know about Fanon. We've read the books of our revolution. We've listened to Mao and his quotations. We know where we stand. We're not going to sit for it. We're asking, and if we ask and we don't get, we're prepared to stand up and take it. If I ask a man, I tell a man I am hungry. I tell him I am cold. And I ask him to do something about my condition. And this man holds a loaf of bread right in front of me so I can see it. And I keep asking him, I'm begging him to please give me a slice of the loaf of bread. I am hungry. Then it is known by every psychologist that the next step in the progression is I am going to knock him upside the head and take the bread from him. I'm not going to starve to death. All we're asking, no one wants to see blood. No one likes the smell of blood. No one wants war. Anyone who's been in war doesn't want war. Everyone knows what it is to see the inside of a man's gut hanging out and see your friends die, see relatives die. No one wants to regress back to the state of mind where you have to think it's all for the cause, therefore my mother has to die, my wife has to die, my brothers and sisters have to die. No one wants that. But you're pushing us to it. You're leaving us no choice. We're asking, we're begging. The students up at Columbia, they ask. The brothers down south ask. The brothers in Latin America, the brothers in Africa, they're all asking. All they're doing is asking. Our fathers asked. Our grandfathers asked. The presidents of our universities, our colleges had to go to your back doors to beg that their children be given just enough money so that they could be taught something to live off. And yet still they asked and asked and asked, and you refused to give them anything. Now, we're just about out of patience. We're not going to ask anymore. The news media says that it's only the young that are militant, only the young that want this and want that. Okay, but we're 40% of the black population now. Or we were a year ago, and still yet we're climbing. Before long we'll be 50%, 55%, and then we'll have the command. We're not going to take it. We're not going to take sitting in rotten parks and in places that just aren't fit for living. We're not going to take it. There's a limit to a man's patience, and everyone knows that God, Christ, heaven, everyone knows that what we're asking is not $1 million. What we're asking for is humanity. We're asking to be allowed to live like human beings. And God, you tell us that this is too much to ask. You're sick. You're definitely sick. How can you tell me that it's too much to ask to be a human being?
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another live broadcast on the forecast. Um, yeah, I know I'm on here pretty late, and listen, I get it. With this platform, they have all types of things where they're not going to give you a lot of notifications or let whatever. So I need to be more set with my schedule, but it is what it is. But I wanted to come on here today, just because it's Juneteenth, you know what I'm saying? So shouts out to everybody who's out here celebrating Juneteenth and all the parties and all the stuff we probably go to all weekend to enjoy Juneteenth or whatever. And I know a lot of people on here talking about it, but I ain't really want to talk about it really, especially since a lot of other people are talking about it, and I feel like people are informed about Juneteenth. You know what I mean? So instead, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Now, I already showed the first two chapters of the next part of the book, but I figured I'll just come on here today and we'll do like the audio reading of the volume two. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's not complete yet. I mean, it's complete, but I gotta do the finishing edits and all that stuff. But hey, I figured why not come on here and just play it and since it is Juneteenth, you know what I mean? And but before we do that, I'll instead of talking about it, I'll let this sister uh give us our Juneteenth speech for the day.
Why is freedom uncomfortable? Freedom is uncomfortable because bondage feels like nurturing when you ain't ever been comfortable. Comfortable. Comfort table, the comfort tabled until the next rewritten history. 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 What is American history? Rewritten. Smitten with the stories of the heroes, unwritten, racing the fears of a white villain who's never anything like your neighbor, a slaver. The past didn't do us any favors. See, unwritten is untold, and untold is what we sold down river like massa, or you can call him Mister, my sister, away from me just like Seely, a wisher, praying for the freedom of my kin be like, I took a breath just in case you couldn't. I took a breath, ready to be prudent. I wait, patient for 40 acres and a mule. I wait, wondering did I just play the fool? It's foolish to fool around with love before it's time. It's time to stop toiling with that theory in your mind. The one that says this America is liberty for all, but it's liberty to fall in deeper sin where within we don't address our heritage, our history, the synergy of racism and false religion cryptically, a decision that plunged our country deep in denial. We line up rank and file to salute the flag that lines the green mile. Uh, no, sir, I sure don't need your respect. And yes, sir, please do come at me correct because I am a black woman, a follower of Christ. And I know for a fact that God's grace does suffice, but bruised black bodies sold like cattle. And yet here we are, family, on the front line of battle for a holiday. Holiday. Who wants to join a holiday? Celebrate our blissful ignorance about the compromise that we're three-fifths of a holiday. Ha! Holiday. That's why they call it a holiday, because it's laughable at best and unconscionable at worst. So you don't need black bodies strung up in a tree. You don't need a knee in the neck of someone that looks like me. You don't need a reason to celebrate Juneteenth. You only need the truth. The truth will set you free. The truth is that black people are grateful for the minimum recognition, tradition, walking out without superstition. But what we truly want is what the Most High gave us proper a Father who says that we are worth the highest offer. Not because black is better or white is pure as snow, but because we've been paid for, redeemed off Wall Street. We've been paid for. Take a deep breath with me. Okay, we have work to do.
Okay, so Well, yeah, that's your Juneteenth holiday, so um, I'll let that sister speak on it. But yeah, like I said, I don't know how long I'm gonna be on here, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know when people are on here or listening. To me it'd be saying zero the whole time, so unless somebody in the chat, I really be thinking nobody in here anyway. So but it is what it is. So if anybody does have anything to say, whether you agree, disagree, whatever, or I got something incorrect, or you want to correct me on something, or I left something out, or whatever the case may be, um you're welcome to come on here, and I'll check, but just say that you're back there because I can't really see. Oh, there go my brother Anthony right there. Yo, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not much, chilling, bro. How you doing?
I'm chilling, man. Just got through eating, man. Had to eat me a plate of them pinto beans and some mustard greens and some of them smoked neck bones, man. Some good old down south food, man.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah, they eat me some good old food, man. I just celebrate Juneteenth. And for the record, I celebrate Juneteenth. I like Juneteenth.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
I,
what's up,
I
brother.
celebrate it. I celebrate it because I celebrate it in the spirit of what it's meant for. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I mean, I ain't into the old commercial thing when they commercials and all that old bullshit. I celebrate in the spirit of the struggle of our ancestors, what they went through, them handing the baton to us, and for us to carry it further, than what they carried it. And so, yeah, what I think of, well, it's a whole lot of it's we could it's a whole lot of things we can say about about any of these holidays that we do follow. Negroes put on sombreros, drink tequila, and drink Modelo's and celebrate Cinco de Mayo. You know what I'm saying? Negroes do that. Negroes put on green suits, you know what I'm saying, and run around acting like celebrating St. Patrick's Day. You know what I'm saying? We do all of that bullshit. And so I think, man, I don't have a problem with us celebrating having a good time and celebrating our people, man, the struggle of our people. Juneteenth. You know what I'm saying? I don't have a problem with it, man. I think it's a great thing, man. As a matter of fact, it's the only real holiday that we have, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just it's about us, about our people. You know what I'm saying? We ain't celebrating the 4th of July. Freddie Douglass told you about that shit. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got no damn holiday. And like we know what it is. We know what it is and what it ain't. You know what I'm saying? And we know that the battle ain't over with. The battle ain't gonna be over with until we got a free black nation. Right there. That's the only time we're gonna be free. You can't never be free living on a plantation. You know what I'm saying? You ain't never gonna be free living on another man's rule. So we already know we ain't free. We know the fight ain't over with. We know that. You know what I'm saying? But it's just it's a celebration of the fight because our people fought, man. These days you have a lot of Negroes talking about we ain't our ancestors. Yeah, you damn sure ain't because your ancestors had more heart and courage than you did. You ain't gonna do a damn thing. You know what I'm saying? But hurt another black person. You ain't gonna fight no enemies. So, but anyway, though, man, yeah, I celebrate Juneteenth, man. I love Juneteenth. I love, seeing our people come out, man, and just celebrate them, having communion among ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Just for a day we could all come together, man. In love and everything. Because any other day is bullshit. But everywhere you go, man, I've been looking all over social media, man, and everywhere, man, and brothers and sisters, black people is having a good time. You know what I'm saying? For this one day, just loving each other, and damn if we can keep that shit up and make it a way of life for us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that'd be crazy, man. But yeah, I celebrate Juneteenth, man, and and for all of the haters and people who don't like it or people who disagree with it, well, everybody entitled to their own opinion. But I love it though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody entitled to their own opinion. And yeah, I ain't got no problem with that, for sure. Uh, like you said, we celebrate everything else, And I know people was like, yeah, talk about it and stuff. But I mean, I feel like people understand the basics of it enough to where, is, I don't really want to talk about it, but like, not that I don't want to. It's just that I don't feel like I don't need to, I guess. But You know, and it's different things, but yeah, it's a lot of partying. I went to a Juneteenth thing, I think last year or maybe the year before that. I don't know. But it was fun, you know what I'm saying? We was doing a lot of like singing and dancing and stuff. We do that very well, you know what I'm saying? And it's not disrespectful to us. It's just that it's like what you said. Imagine if that was not Juneteenth, but hell, October 1st or June, you know, or May 2nd or whatever. You know, every day is damn Juneteenth. You know. But I mean, if you want to talk about it real quick, like you know, Juneteenth, you can. You know, if you want to.
No, I'm good, man. I pretty much said what I wanted to say, man. I mean, 'cause like I said, basically, I don't mean no disrespect to anybody who don't like it. You know what I'm saying? You like I said, you're entitled to your opinion. But to me, I'm just like, what the hell? I mean, who can have a problem on the day that black people get together and celebrate each other? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, who can have a problem with that? I mean, you get. I mean, if I come to Virginia, whatever. Hey man, it's June 19th. Man, let's put some meat on the grill and let's kick it. Let's talk. All us get together. You know what? And at the same time, you meeting people. You meeting new people. Guess what? We might could talk about some of our real shit. You know what I'm saying? And enlighten another mind. You know what I'm saying? I use moments like this as a teachable moment. You know what I'm saying? When I see my brothers and sisters in the community and we talk about that, hey man, happy Juneteenth, what's up? They see me with my little shirt on and everything. Hey man, all right, what's going on? You know what? I take that time out. Juneteenth gave me a chance to go out and talk and pull this brother or sister to the side and talk to him. Hey man, well, look at what you think about this. We got to, we always talking about how we getting out organized, by other groups, whether it's the nation, whether it's the Hebrew Israelite brothers or other people, you know what I'm saying? Well, I look at it, that's the time for us to get out. Hey, this is a time we can get out and do something. Hey man, let's use this right here, as a talking point or whatever. Hey man, what you know about this? This and that, things like that. That's the way I look at it, man. I don't look at it in just a way that, just a bunch of Negroes out partying and having a good time. Yeah, we doing that, and I did it too. I'm gonna do some more later on tonight. But I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? I use things as a teachable moment, man, because you got to get them when you can. Because our people hard headed as hell, and it's hard to talk to them anyway.
Nah, that's facts. That's very true. That's a good point right there, you know. I definitely agree with that point. And yeah, it starts from somewhere, you know, you gotta reach the people where they are, you know what I mean? And a time like that will bring people together, you know what I'm saying? Especially now I'm seeing more of the younger generation having more of a I'm black and I'm proud kind of mindset again, you know what I mean? Like no disrespect, but like I feel like that was lost a little bit. It wasn't necessary. I blame them for everything, but y'all be like, I'm tripping because I do that. But I like to see that this black proudness is coming back. You know what I'm saying? And black people is focusing on working with other black people. So and more importantly, spending money with other black people to do so. So I definitely agree with that, my brother. I so we'll go to all right, now I'm doing this like I ain't even look up half of this stuff. I just was like look at some of the stuff I was talking about, right? Now I talked about I guess Juneteenth and the first. I already did chapter 1 and 2 of the next book coming out, you know, but this is the chapters 3 and 4 of it. It's for me. It's like chapter 20 and 21 or whatever, but um, this is around Juneteenth time, so. You know what I mean? Juneteenth had happened probably in chapter 1 or 2 or something like that. Um, so let's start from there. And like I said, I didn't even look up some of the stuff that I was talking about. I just put it in there and we'll go from there. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to say something or whatever, just let me know and we can talk about it from here. You know, but so here we go.
An era of Jim Crow, the first civil rights. If black people didn't protect themselves, no.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, I hear.
Okay, I can't hear it. I'm gonna go out and come back in real quick.
All
An
right, man.
era of
Everybody,
Jim
just
Crow,
hold tight for
first
a
civil
minute, man. We waiting on forecast to come back in, man. You back in? Okay, y'all. We waiting on the forecast to come back in, man. He had to have a little technical difficulty, man. He'd be right back in a couple of minutes, man. So everybody, just hold tight, man. You know, we doing a little study about his book, man. The history of racism, and so
All right, you
everybody,
hear
just
me?
hold tight for me. Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, let me see if I hear. All right.
an era of Jim Crow.
Okay, yeah, I hear it now. All right, all right, we good now.
An era of Jim Crow, the first civil rights. If black people didn't protect themselves, no one was going to do it. Although slavery was abolished in Puerto Rico in 1873, enslaved people had to buy their freedom at whatever price set by their owners. The law required slaves to work for the state for 3 years, as well as their former owner or anyone interested in their services. In Zanzibar, the Arab sultans signed a treaty with Britain and agreed to end their participation in the slave trade. But in America, hate groups such as the White League continued to attack black people. In Red River Parish, LA, 30 Republicans were assassinated, and most of them were black. The plan was to overthrow what they called Negro governments and the black militia. A black man named Levin Allen had his legs and arms.
Okay, yo, hey, and by the way, at this point, at 1873 is what they had the Reconstruction government. Yeah, there was black cities with black politicians as what they called Negro governments, right? And black people protecting those cities, you know, at this point. And this is in Red River Parish, Louisiana. Um, and you know, that's when they had a problem with these brothers. Just to give you context, you know, for what's going on at this point.
The plan was to
Yeah.
overthrow what they called.
Yeah, go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Red River Parish is like where I live is Caddo Parish. I live as Caddo Parish. Now the next parish over from me is Bossier Parish, or Bossier City. But the Red River runs through Bossier Parish, between Bossier Parish and Caddo. So the parish to the south of Bossier Parish, that's Red River Parish. That's it. That's where Cassidra, Louisiana is located. Cassidra.
Okay, all right. So this basically like close to you.
Yeah, I mean, less than 50 miles.
Oh wow, damn. Yeah, all right, all right. I know you I already know you know about this though, but yeah, all right. So let me play, and you can jump in at any time too, my brother. I'll pause it.
In Red River Parish, LA, 30 Republicans were assassinated, and most of them were black. The plan was to overthrow what they called Negro governments and the black militia. A black man named Levin Allen had his legs and arms broken, and he was buried alive. The mob went around town arresting and lynching black citizens. Although 25 white residents were arrested for the murders, no one was ever brought to trial. After Arkansas and Alabama voted in all-white Redeemer governments, Democrats took control of the House of Representatives and the Senate for the first time since the Civil War. White groups lashed out violently every time a black man was elected into a position of authority. The Vicksburg Massacre erupted after Peter Crosby was elected sheriff in 1874.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna stop it right there. I should have looked up Levin Allen, but so the Vicksburg massacre, right? All right, and hold on. Let me see. We can do that real quick.
You should have got
Um,
you should have got to the okay. I don't know. Did you do your research on the Colfax massacre?
yeah. That one come up.
Okay,
Yeah,
it what now?
yeah. That's a different one. Yeah,
Okay, I mean, you was in Red River Parish. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. It come
Okay,
back.
hey, but
It come
go
back
ahead,
as a
go
Holocaust
ahead,
massacre.
go ahead.
All right. All right. Never mind. So like, and this joint is just it goes by the order of like when it happened. Did you saying that one happened before this one? Because I could change it. You know what I'm saying? Because I
No,
think I have.
the Cold Fest, it was in 1870. It may have been 74. It might have been 74. I kind of, I don't forget.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
but go ahead on, man. Go ahead on with it. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Because I ain't watched none of these videos to find the right one to play. So y'all forgive me for this part.
Freedom and enlisted in the U.S. Colored Troops County, Mississippi in 1844, Peter Crosby knew only the cruel whip and backbreaking labor of enslavement. But when the Civil War erupted, he saw his chance for freedom and enlisted in the U.S. Colored Troops Union Army. Through bloodshed and bravery, he fought for his liberation and that of his people. And in 1873, against all odds, Peter Crosby broke another barrier by becoming the first black man elected as sheriff of Vicksburg, Mississippi. His victory shook the foundations of a deeply divided society, proving that courage and determination could conquer even the most entrenched prejudices. The November elections of 1874 marked the beginning of a dark and tumultuous era. The Democratic Party's triumph in Congress emboldened the White Leaguers, a ruthless paramilitary group. They seized the opportunity to control and purge Vicksburg of any semblance of black political power. Yet Crosby, emboldened by the spirit of resistance, refused to yield to the forces. In November 1874, Sheriff Crosby was unjustly indicted on false charges. The black citizens of Vicksburg cried out for justice, their voices trembling with fear and anger. But their cries were met with a crushing wave of hatred and bigotry as the White League launched a merciless attack to cleanse the city of all black people. Blood stained the streets, buildings crumbled under the weight of destruction, and screams echoed throughout the once peaceful community. Through it all, the brave souls who fought for their right to live were outnumbered and overpowered. The forces of hatred reigned supreme, leaving behind a trail of 300 lynched and shot bodies as a warning to those who dared to resist. The Vicksburg Massacre forever scarred the spirit of the community, a reminder of the brutal power that prejudice and bigotry can wield. President Ulysses S. Grant sent federal troops to Vicksburg. It was a
All
desperate
right, this dude blowing me with the music. But all right, my brother. He said he gonna come back. Now this is why I would like to find a black person talking about it. I should have listened.
The former slave state is quite unique. White.
All right, anyway. So let's go back to where it was. All right, so the Vicksburg Massacre, right? I wanted to just at least let y'all see some of it, as we talk about it. I guess this is a brother.
Massacre series, where today we will be posts or various posts in order to find something relative about this particular massacre because there wasn't that much written up about it. On December 7th, 1874, raging white mobs bombarded a large number of black people in Vicksburg, Mississippi. The blacks had organized a civic assembly in support of a legitimately elected black sheriff who was unjustly overthrown. During the Reconstruction era, which succeeded the Emancipation and Civil War, black Mississippians made significant race-based progress toward fairness and justice. Prior to the enactment of the Black Codes, which were enforced in late 1865 to persecute and dehumanize the South's black population, a large number of black men continued to vote and hold political offices. They did so at the federal, state, and municipal levels, with federal soldiers protecting them and enforcing newly recognized civil rights for black people. Peter Crosby, a previously enslaved black man, was elected as Vicksburg's Mississippi sheriff in the 1870s. However, soon after assuming office, he was indicted on bogus criminal charges and forcibly ousted from office by hordes of angry whites. On December 7th, 1874, a group of black individuals in Vicksburg banded together to assist Mr. Crosby in the hopes that he reclaims his position. In retaliation, enraged white mobs brutalized and slaughtered hundreds and hundreds of black citizens in a racially charged terrorist attack called the Vicksburg Massacre. Federal forces were dispatched to Vicksburg in the aftermath of this atrocity, and Mr. Crosby was reappointed sheriff. However, in early 1875, Sheriff Crosby recruited a white man named J.P. Gilmer as his deputy. On June 7th, 1875, when Sheriff Crosby attempted to remove Mr. Gilmer from office, he shot Sheriff Crosby in the head. Mr. Gilmer was apprehended but was never tried for the attempted assassination. Mr. Crosby lived after the headshot but never fully recovered. He was forced to complete his tenure via the assistance of a proxy white citizen. The wanton brutality and coercive techniques used by white Mississippians focused on reestablishing white dominance. This quickly allowed forces opposed to the Reconstruction era's goal of racial justice to reclaim control of Mississippi. So that's pretty much the entire write-up right there. This is probably one of.
So I just wanted to let y'all get a visual representation of what this was.
White groups lashed out violently every time a black man was elected into a position of authority. The Vicksburg Massacre erupted after Peter Crosby was elected sheriff in 1874. After the election, a white planter wrote a letter describing how white residents were preparing for a race war. Over the next few days, white mobs attacked the black community. They drug people out of their homes and lynched them. According to reports, 30 to 50 black people were killed, but the true number may be closer to 300. Eventually, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1875. The Civil Rights Act was designed to protect all citizens and provide equal protection under the law. Every citizen, regardless of race, was granted equal access to public places including theaters, hotels, restaurants, trains, buses, etc. Anyone that violated the law was fined $500. The Civil Rights Act of 1875 also gave every citizen the right to serve on a jury, regardless of race. But the act only angered white Americans more. In Mississippi, the Clinton riot of 1875. In Mississippi,
Now, here you have another Civil Rights Act, right? They repealing the Civil Rights Act, you know what I'm saying? As you see, right? It was designed to protect all citizens and provide equal protection under the law. Every citizen, regardless of race, was supposed to be granted access to public places, including theaters, hotels, restaurants, trains, buses, etc. Right? Which did not happen, right? And it was supposed to give every citizen the right to serve on a jury, regardless of race. You know what I'm saying? Meaning no all white juries. Right? Good luck with that, right? And we could talk about the Civil Rights Act, but y'all should, I guess, do y'all research since y'all worried about the 1964 one. That's what the same thing that they said in 1890. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just passed the Civil Rights. They repealing the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, of course, you know.
in Mississippi, the Clinton riot of 1875 started after about 1,500 to 2,500 black residents gathered together for a political rally. Although about 75 white residents attended, black men, women, and children were enjoying the afternoon, picnicking and discussing politics. It wasn't long before white hecklers showed up to disrupt the event. They quickly turned into a mob and threatened to use.
Oh yeah. By the way, back then, when they say Republicans, like the Republicans were the Democrats and the Democrats were the Republicans at the time. You know what I mean? So they was having this political rally, right? And black men, women, and children were just enjoying themselves, discussing politics, right?
It wasn't long before white hecklers showed up to disrupt the event. They quickly turned into a mob and threatened to use violence if the crowd didn't disperse. Sure enough, the gang fell into formation and fired their weapons into the crowd. One witness described it as bullets coming down like rain. Black mothers grabbed their terrified children and hid in the woods. One woman was forced to hide her infant in a hollow tree. According to reports, at least 5 black people were killed, including 2 children. A few black men managed to shoot back and killed 3 people. After the shootout, White residents spread rumors that blacks were planning to storm the town. Hundreds of white people showed up in Clinton from all over Mississippi. They attacked every black person they came across, including teachers, church leaders, politicians, and even children. Reports estimated that anywhere from 30 to 50 black people were killed, but the real number could be in the hundreds. Blanche Kelso Bruce was the first black senator in Mississippi, and he served a 6-year term. But after the Clinton massacre, Democrats regained control of Mississippi and established an all-white Redeemer government. Still, during a violent
Now, that's a whole nother thing, and something they still trying to do. What they call redeemer governments. You know what I'm saying? And that's something what as y'all would call the Trump and them as a redeemer government. You know what I mean? This is something that is common throughout their history. You know, the thing is, right? Imagine this. You know, you being you chilling in your home, and then a group of them decide to come and attack you, and you gotta go run into the woods. You know, hide your baby in a tree, right? But the part that they leave out is that black men were armed, and I said killed 3 people, but it was 3 whites, 3 Neanderthals. They weren't people, right? So that was incorrect. But they use all of these false talking points and all of that stuff to do the things that they do. You know what I mean? Um, let's see. Okay.
This week, Clinton leaders are remembering a race riot and massacre.
It's a tragedy that happened more than 100 years ago. 16 WAPT's Ross Adams is live from Old Town Clinton with more.
Friday morning, leaders from across Clinton will gather here in Old Town at the intersection of Jefferson and Westlake for the unveiling of a marker, a special marker commemorating the race riot and massacre. Clinton leaders are marking one of the darkest chapters in its history, an 1875 race riot and massacre.
And 3 whites were killed at that time known, and there were 5 blacks, including 2 children.
Former Clinton Mayor Dr. Walter Howell says a group of white men from Raymond and Bolton hunted down and killed some 20 blacks. Other accounts say more than 100 blacks died in the massacre.
Because of what happened when a group of whites tried to disrupt a political meeting attended by about 1,500 black men, women, and children.
During
By the way, what happened was the end of slavery.
that meeting, gunfire erupted between blacks and whites. People on both sides died in the shootout. Then in December 1875, a gang of men gunned down Charles Caldwell, a black Republican just elected to the state Senate, outside a building that still stands today in Old Town.
Probably at least 40 bullets riddled the body.
As a result of the shootings, whites took control of state government, and blacks were left without political power for almost 100 years.
They were majority in Hinds County. They were majority in the state of Mississippi. But you get past this riot in the 1875 election, and they just disappear from the political scene.
All right, and there's a lot more we could talk about, but we're just gonna go through it, get through it, you know.
Still, during a violent oppression, Oliver Lewis became the first black jockey to win the Kentucky Derby. Over the next 27 years, 14 black jockeys won the Derby. In 1876, Edward Alexander Boucher earned a Ph.D. from Yale University, becoming the first black person to earn a Ph.D. from an American university. A black man named Lewis Latimer also helped create and patent the telephone. Lewis created a usable light bulb and made it accessible to the masses. In South Carolina, a former leader in the Confederacy, Wade Hampton, was elected.
Okay, yeah, and I also probably should have had something about Lewis Lattimore, you know, and we'll talk about it was a brother, Granville Woods, you know, and I'll pull up Lewis Lattimore more than at that time. All right, my brother is back. Yo, what's going on, my brother?
Okay. I wanted to go back to when that old cracker was talking, man. Saying or talking to the brother about they was talking about the well, one thing, well, we already know. We don't call it. We don't. They use these terms, these polite terms, where these brothers and sisters, who are reporters, had to use calling somebody race riot. It wasn't a race riot. It was a race massacre. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a riot that black people and white people started fighting each other. That wasn't a riot. This was when black people, white people came in and attacked innocent, mostly unarmed black people. You know what I'm saying? So listen, we know all of that race riot stuff. You know what I'm saying? It was a race massacre. Call it what it is. Like you always say. But one of the ancestors that he had mentioned, Caldwell. I think it was Charles Caldwell. He had mentioned this Caldwell brother. I read about him. Now see, he was like he was like he was a politician. He became like a politician in Mississippi. And I'm trying to, what was it? He was like I don't know if he had fought he was in the Union Army or something. But anyway, he became like a big a big dude there, a big brother there, among in the black community. He was like he was a powerful politician. Well, he was the first brother recorded on the books in America that had got into it with another white man and killed a white man. It was it was found innocent by a white jury. Ironic. It was probably a whole bunch of the what they call them, the carpetbaggers, probably. What I'm saying. But yeah, he killed some old cracker who tried to kill him. And he was found he was found innocent. He was found not guilty by a whole white jury. And it was later on after that where I guess like the people who was kin to the old cracker that he killed, they the ones who killed him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the Caldwell brother. Caldwell, because he was like a sheriff or something. He was some kind of like a local political boss or something, or political leader, during the Reconstruction movement, and in Mississippi, and he was always under threat and everything. Well, anyway, he got killed like that, but he actually had killed a couple of crackers, if I recollect right.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Yeah, he was like a politician or something. I ain't know what the story you just said. And yeah, that's why. But I know like he was in a position of power. That's why they attacked him or whatever, and riddled his body up. But no, I would have. I guess I should have put more about him, but I didn't even know that. So like, yeah, I definitely would go back and look that up and put that in there. Hell yeah, that's definitely true. Shouts out to Karma 804 in the building too. I appreciate you listening. Thank you for coming through. Appreciate you. All right, let's keep going back to this.
In South Carolina, a former leader in the Confederacy, Wade Hampton, was elected governor. Throughout the summer, whites in South Carolina caused havoc and were extremely violent. Several riots broke out all over the state. The Hamburg riot started after black residents organized a parade to celebrate the 4th of July. A couple of
All right, and these is all things that happen like in the next couple of weeks, But I ain't even getting nothing about the Hamburg riot. But there you
Oh,
go.
hey, look here. Hey, I read. Okay, I ain't mean to interrupt you, but about that Hamburg rat, I read about that, and it was a book I was reading about this old cracker who was like one of the leaders of the riot, and he was like the governor of South Carolina after that Wade Hampton dude. His name was Ben Tillman, known as Pitchfork Ben Tillman. You know what I'm saying? And I was reading that biography about him. I don't know, somebody that told me, said, man, read about this, about Dan Tillman. And it went into detail about the riot, about the whole the political scene, because in South Carolina, it was a state where like 90% of the population was black. You know what I'm saying? Black people were 90% of the population, and they had a lot of political power, during the so-called what they call the Reconstruction period. They had a couple of brothers who was lieutenant governor, people who were like state treasurers and stuff like that. They had this brother named Alonzo Ranzier, who was a brother who was a lieutenant governor, Richard Gleaves, and everything. But yeah, I had read about that Hamburg riot, and this was like when the crackers had like turned the power thing around, to take the power from the blacks, from the black people, in South Carolina. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in for you.
Well, nah, yeah, I'm glad you, and this is why I'm glad you came on here. That was better than anything I could have looked up to add to it. Because you have more information than probably anybody on, especially all of these subjects. So definitely appreciate that.
A couple of white planters tried to drive through the parade, but a black militia stopped them. The planters went to the courthouse to complain about Negroes blocking the street and demanded the black militia give up their guns, but they refused. Hundreds of armed whites gathered to confront the crowd and the militia. The mob heavily outnumbered the militia and had more weapons, including a cannon. The black militia was surrounded and eventually surrendered. 4 black men were singled out and executed. The mob said they'd let everyone else go, but as they turned to leave, they opened fire. When the shooting was over, 6 black people and 1 white person lay dead. To this day, South Carolina only recognizes the memorial for the 1 white person that was killed. Although black people started arming themselves, the violence continued up to the election of 1876. The Ellington
Now, and the thing about they don't tell you about it is they don't tell you like these black militias wasn't just doing. That's why they, had to come, but they had cannons and what's that gun that they would use, a Gatling? Is that a Gatling gun, right?
Yeah, Gallagher. But hey, but check this out. To add on to that, man, check this out. Okay, when I was reading the book, it was one he talked about this old cracker Ben Tillman. They talked about it was this one particular brother, who was a leader of the militia, of the black militia there in South Carolina. I can't recall his name now because it's been years since I read this. But anyway, he was his brother who had been a soldier in the Union Army. But anyway, he had a particular hatred. He hated white people. He hated them with a passion. He was a bad brother. He hated white people. And he was like basically like, like the militia, they had like in those in the aftermath of the Civil War, they had like basically like martial law in a lot of those places to keep them hunkies in line. But anyway, he was the leader of the militia, of the black militia, the black commanding officer of the militia, and he used to go out. He was known for going out his way to really fuck with white people, man. I mean, like he let them know that. I mean, they knew that he hated them. And they even often complained about him, how arrogant he was, and how he just hated them, and how he disrespected them, disrespected their women and everything. I can't. I'm gonna try to go back and find out his name, but during the riot, it was also known. It was stated that how when the Hunkins started trying to take back power there, and they talked about how the blacks and under this brother, how they had this masterful retreat. How they because see the white they tried to kill them. See, they had killed some of the guys, what you were just talking about. They had killed some of the guys in the militia, who they had convinced to lay their arms down. But like the rest of them said, fuck it, we ain't laying our goddamn arms down. But anyway, they managed to get away. Them and some of their family members there was able to get away from the mob, from all of the bullshit that was going on and everything. Cause see, remember, this was at the same time when the government, like at Washington D.C., where the government had sold the blacks out. This was when in '76 is when Rutherford B. Hayes became president. And then they decided to move the federal troops out of the southern the former Confederacy and everything. So I want to throw that in for context also.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you gotta let me know that brother name and also that book you talking about, because I probably add some of that stuff to it. So yeah, I'm glad. That's why I'm glad I come on here. Yeah, and this is what I be trying to tell y'all. Tell me some stuff that add to the context and everything, because as I be reading and looking up everything that I've heard about and that I see, but I haven't seen everything and all things, you know. And that's why I say, especially each and every thing that I talk about, and to do your own research on each individual thing, because it's context to each one. This is just the story of everything that happened, and then and of course, you know, I can't go into all. I went into a lot of details, but like I guess not too many details to go through from all the way from the beginning to 2020, you know what I'm saying? But this is the time where, as the brother was saying, like, and we're gonna get into that in a little bit. When the president threw you under the bus as far as like the ending Reconstruction and all of that stuff. But one thing that they did was try to use violence. But what they won't tell you is that there were armed black men and there were black militias, and it was brothers, like the brother was saying, like the brother who before who um took out the brother, you know what I'm saying? Like who took out whites and did what they had to do. Like they never tell you about that side of the story. And that's the only part that I want you to know, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, it was attacks. And that's the thing about their media and propaganda. You know what I'm saying? When they slaughter 100 people or 1,000 people, they call it a great victory, a great war. If they lose 2 people, they call it a tragedy. You know what I'm saying? That's like when they was the ones who was scalping the Indians first, but you know the Indians were scalping them, you know what I'm saying? But that was really just a retaliatory thing, you know what I'm saying, where they started scalping because they were getting scalped, you know what I mean? But that's their propaganda. It's a race riot when they went it's a race massacre when they slaughter us, but in the times where we get them, those are the race riots, you know what I'm saying? Like the Houston race riot of 1917 or whatever. You know, I get it all mixed up. But anyway, this is another one I forgot too, the Ellington massacre. Have you heard about that one?
Yeah. I ran
Damn,
across it.
brother.
Yeah, I ran across it. Yeah, I was muted. I was waiting till you get through talking.
Nah, okay, damn,
Yeah.
brother. Nah, yeah. All right, let me play a little bit about it, and then you go in on it and see if, because I want you to see if I'm wrong. You know.
The Ellington massacre began after an elderly white woman named Alonzo Harley lied about 2 black men attacking her. She claimed she pulled out a gun and forced him to flee. White mobs who referred to themselves as a gun club searched for imaginary Negro suspects. No black person in Aiken County was safe. A man named Peter Williams tried to escape from the mob, but he was shot numerous times, even though Harley said it wasn't him. Anywhere from 500 to 600 whites came from Georgia to join the manhunt. They killed field workers, churchgoers, and political figures. They attacked every black person in their path. They even attacked black families while they were in their homes. Federal troops were sent in to stop the violence, but it was too late. Some reports say 25 to 30 black people were killed. However, other reports say the number was as high as 100, and countless people were wounded. Several whites were wounded as well, and 1 white person was killed. The governor, Wade Hampton, used these violent incidents for his own political gain. He continued to spread white fear and preached about the dangers of a Negro government. However,
All right. So yeah, what you think about that, my brother? Go ahead. Go ahead.
So Wade Hampton was one of those guys. He was one of those. He was like the beginning of those Southern governors that you would read about later, like in the 50s and 60s. Like you read about like a Lester Maddox in Georgia, or you read about what's his name, the one in Mississippi, what was that cracker's name in
Yeah, he was
Mississippi?
like, not now, not ever, or whatever the hell
Yeah,
his name
the
was.
one who when Medgar Evers had got killed, what was that hunker's name, man?
Yeah, I know you're talking about. I forgot his.
Ross Barnett. Ross Barnett. Yeah,
Yeah, it
well,
was
Ross
another one
Barnett.
too. But yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm saying, but like those guys, Wade Hampton was like one of those early Southern governors, those what they call them political demagogues, back then. but it was him. And at the same time, okay, like after him, it was this other cracker, the one who came on Pitchfork, Ben Tillman. That's the book. The book that you gotta see that read about is about Pitchfork Ben Tillman, about the governor, where he talk about the Hamburg riots. And, you know, he gonna put it in a way like a heroic way for white people, but you know, it gives a lot of details though, and a lot of stuff that you would love to, a lot of interesting facts. But you had like he came after Wade Hampton, but Wade Hampton was one of those guys. He was like one of those political opportunists type guys. It was like he came in with you know, he was like he really didn't have a side, you know, like rather I mean like the government or the other. He really was one of those, he was an opportunist. You know, really, you know, he was like a con or he was a con man, and he was really just like, you know, for his own thing, you know. It was he had his own agenda, what I'm saying. And, you know, he would use, you know, like they flaying these white fears and all this stuff of black men running around all in the woods, you know, and everything, you know, raping, you know, and scaring white women, you know, white women that had to watch out, and all that old basic Klan talk and shit. And so you had these guys like him, Wade Hampton, like later like Ben Tillman, and after him Cole Blease, and you had probably one of the worst crackers that ever came down the peak was in Mississippi, J.K. Vardaman. You know, he had a book. I had this book. I went to the library. I didn't buy the book, but I read it in the library when I was reading about these guys like Theodore Bilbo and all these old Southern governors, you know, in the Reconstruction period in the early 1900s, you know, all of the shit that they did and everything. But J.K. Vardaman is one you need to read about too. It's a book called The White Chief. You know, there was some crazy shit in that motherfucker, man. You know, he was the one that said if we have, he said we gonna maintain law in Mississippi. We had to lynch every nigga in Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? He the one who said that, J.K. Vardaman. But yeah, I mean, it was just typical politics at that time, man. You know what I'm saying? It was typical politics because, like, see, the Reconstruction period, you got to know that whole thing. Now, to them, they always put it like, well, it was a period of a lot of corruption. It was a lot of corruption among whites. Because, see, now you had the whites coming down from the north, the ones who they call carpetbaggers. You know what I'm saying? Who was like taking advantage of business opportunities and things like that. They was working hand in hand with some of them low down dirty crackers who was already down there. And then, you know, you had the old former slaveocracy, you know, the plantation owners who was trying to reestablish, you know, cotton and everything, you know, and they old business interests at the same time, you know, and they had black people, you know, in the middle as political football, you know what I'm saying? And so just imagine all of the stuff that was going, you know, that mix of all of those type things that were going on. You know, black political power, the old Slavocracy wanting to come back, then the corrupt officials, and then, you know, the corrupt officials from the northern states, whatever, you know, the northern corrupt officials. And so you had a mix of all that type of shit going on, man. And then you had these black politicians who really were more educated, more polished, more educated, you know what I'm saying, and more sophisticated than all of the white politicians that they had at the same time during that whole Reconstruction period. You know, but you had some of these brothers who was literate, who could read and write, who could speak Greek, Hebrew, and all kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? They had good education and everything. I mean, you know, who were real and who were actually really out there doing things for the people, for the states. A lot of the education things and stuff that the progressive things that happened during Reconstruction, during that part of that period in all these different states from Virginia on back to Louisiana, Texas. All of that stuff was bought in by the black politicians, not the whites. Yeah, so I just throw that in for a minute. You know, they actually were the only ones that was really doing something for all of the people.
Oh yeah, that's what Negroes do for everybody. But I mean that's not a disrespectful thing. It's a
No,
sign of
no, you know what I
respect.
mean? What I'm
No, no,
saying for okay, I mean,
yeah,
they
no,
were
no,
actually
I'm
doing
agreeing. I'm
something for
agreeing.
the people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
No, I
I
do.
you know, yeah, you know, I mean, not in the context of everybody, but you know, in the context of actually doing shit for people, for real life people, you know, poor people and stuff.
Yeah, no, because that's what I was about to say. Like, it's like what black people still say, like you got to be 10 times better than them to be in the same position, and they were because most of them were like rednecks, like, hey, what you doing around? And like kind of redneck white boys, you know what I'm saying? But they're in political offices. Meanwhile, black people look at it as serious thing where they actually do stuff, you know what I'm saying? And especially in black cities for black towns, because that is one thing that the black political figures was doing was for black cities. They were in black areas, you know what I'm saying? That's what they would like. It didn't even have nothing to do with them, right? That's what they was talking about with these Negro governments, because what they were doing was empowering the people, like you were saying, you know what I mean? Because the one thing about black people is we're going to do the right thing, you know what I'm saying? Now, like in the context that we are today, we understand that the right thing don't mean shit, you know what I'm saying? The right thing is putting us first, you know what I'm saying? But this is the thing that black people are always going to do is, hey, that ain't right, that we got to do the right thing for everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it wasn't like it was today. I'm not putting it in context like today, you know what I'm saying? Because they was trying to make it right for black people. That is everybody, you know what I mean? But the thing is, black people are always going to be fair. And I'm not saying being fair is a bad thing, but it's backfired every time is what I'm saying. I'm not saying with them in this particular case, because Neanderthal violence is what happened to them, you know what I'm saying? So um and shouts out to my man, my brother Jermaine, you know what I'm saying? But no, I'm agreeing with what you're saying about the whole context you putting behind it, you know what I'm saying? Because that's true, you know. I'm about to go, matter of fact, let me play this part because this is what she was talking about.
However, due to a dispute with the vote count, there was no clear winner of the 1876 election. Republicans challenged the results in South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana because black residents were prevented from voting. The Congressional Electoral Commission was created to dissolve the dispute. Rutherford B. Hayes was declared president and inaugurated. In exchange, Hayes agreed to the Compromise of 1877 and removed the federal troops sent to protect black people in Confederate states. The compromise included an agreement to appoint Southern leaders to the Supreme Court and presidential cabinet. Hayes effectively ended the Reconstruction era and ushered in an era.
Oh, my brother, I think I already did talk about the Colfax thing in the second, because this is, I think I talked about that in chapter 2. Because I think you're right, that did happen before that. Because I don't know, I don't remember. I can't remember. It's a lot of stuff that I did since then, but damn, I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about it. I don't remember. That's crazy. But yeah, it already happened by now though. So yeah, I was waiting for it to come up, but I think I already did it. But all right, let me go back to here.
The compromise included an agreement to appoint Southern leaders to the Supreme Court and presidential cabinet. Hayes effectively ended the Reconstruction era and ushered in an era of Jim Crow. Although Republicans were supposedly the party of Reconstruction, they betrayed black voters by removing their protection. All white Redeemer governments took control all over the South. The first official Jim Crow laws were passed in Tennessee in 1866 during Reconstruction. Black and white children were required to attend different schools. Although the University of Tennessee could discriminate based on race, they created separate accommodations for black students in 1869. By 1870, Tennessee passed miscegenation laws to ban.
All right, yo, you want to say something about that part? Because it's about to go into a bunch of miscegenation laws and stuff. But you want to say something about what I said, anything, or if I missed something?
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, we'll just go through this part because this is just a bunch of you know, telling you can't marry white bitches stuff.
By 1870, Tennessee passed miscegenation laws to ban marriage between white citizens and Negroes. Interracial marriage was a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Georgia also followed suit. In a Supreme Court case, Scott versus Georgia, a black woman named Charlotte Scott was indicted for cohabiting and having sexual relations with a white guy named Leopold David. Although they claimed to be married, the Georgia Supreme Court found Charlotte guilty. The courts ruled, mixing races is not only unnatural, it always produces deplorable results. The court also stated, children of interracial relations are generally sick and effeminate, and they're inferior in physical development and strength to the full blood of either race. Georgia made it clear, interracial relationships didn't elevate the inferior race to the position of superior. They only bring down the superior race and produced evil. Another Supreme Court.
By the way, it's not like I necessarily disagree with that, right? Interracial relationships don't elevate the inferior race to the position, right? It just make the mulatto children need sunscreen now. And they only bring down the superior race. And although I wouldn't say evil, I would say, as John Henry Clark says, a complicated topic.
Another Supreme Court case in Indiana in 1871 came to the same conclusion. The case State versus Gibson was about a black man named Thomas Gibson who was married to a white woman named Jenny Williams. Since Thomas had at least 1/8 Negro blood, their marriage violated state law. Although the case was originally thrown out, the Indiana Supreme Court ruled the 14th Amendment wasn't designed to interfere with the state's power to pass and enforce domestic regulations. In Virginia, a case in 1875 went to the Supreme Court after a married couple was charged. In McPherson versus Commonwealth, a mixed-race woman named Rowena McPherson married George Stewart, who was white. Rowena argued she wasn't black enough to be labeled a Negro, but the court found her guilty, and their marriage was considered void. However, the ruling was eventually overturned. By 1873, West Virginia prohibited keeping records of black marriages, births, and deaths in the same books as white residents. In 1875, North Carolina and Missouri passed laws that required black children to attend separate schools from white children. It wasn't long before black and white children were separated all over the South. Texas created 2 different school systems altogether. They also added a poll tax specifically for black voters. Although the law itself didn't discriminate by race, grandfather laws were included to allow whites to continue to vote for free. In Tennessee, stores, hotels, businesses, and anyone who transported passengers were allowed to exclude black people solely based on race. Mississippi passed the...
All right, so I guess that's what they call Jim Crow. Although, the lines are blurred and all this stuff, Now, something I did pull up was the pig law, you know what I'm saying? Well, they made, and like I said,
In a period of nearly 80 years between the Civil War and World War II, black Southerners were no longer slaves, but they were not yet free.
What happened in that period of time was so much more terrible than anything most Americans recognize or understand today.
In one of the most shameful chapters of American history, generations of black Southerners were forced to labor against their will.
Free black people could be just picked up and put in jail. The sheriff department could sell people to corporations and coal mines.
He locked me up for 3 days.
For the chain gang stuff.
After that, he said, if I don't go to work, he'll put me in the river down there.
People's lives were truly stolen from them. Their freedom was taken away.
All the southern states use the criminal justice system to put African Americans back into a position as close to slavery as they possibly could.
These were real people who were deemed to be of no value. Maybe now, through the telling of this history, these individuals can receive some measure of justice.
Well, maybe. See, well, they don't got a lot of information. If I put in specific things. Oh, shouts out to my brother, the brother Roy in the building. I think that was Roy. And like I said, jump in anytime, my brother. But I'm gonna go through it.
Mississippi passed the pig law to increase the punishment for petty crimes, and petty larceny charges were increased to felonies. If a black person stole something worth $10 or more, they were sentenced to up to 5 years in prison. Punishments for petty crimes, like stealing a pig, were heavily enforced. They criminalized poor black people to re-enslave them if they resorted to stealing food. Even
now, the thing about this, right, stealing a pig, well, many black people were poor and didn't have anything, you know what I'm saying? And couldn't get employment and couldn't get work and were facing all of these things. So, yeah, sometimes people would steal a pig just to eat, you know what I'm saying? And, um, but they would take these things and blow these crimes up, as you see today, like, you know what I'm saying, where you jaywalking and the police arrest you, and then they say resisting arrest and all of this stuff, you know. But they started to explode the prison population because quote unquote slavery was over. And now it's a except for if you've committed a crime. But they didn't tell you what the crimes would be, who would get to do the punishments for the crime, and 35 years for defending yourself or whatever. And they told you, well, we need more of the prison population because the prison population is getting old now, so we need younger people to replace them. Oh, no, that was like last week. My bad, not back then. But that's why my brother, even to this day, still enjoy his delicacies like the chitlins and stuff like that because black people could be killed, you know what I'm saying? But that's not to be joking, but like you really could be killed for stuff like that, you know?
And another thing is that from between the end of say from 1866, between the end of the Civil War or the American Civil War, the U.S. Civil War, and so for about I think between the end of the war and up to like I think it's somewhere about a year after, it's around like 1866 or something like that, because so many black people didn't have anywhere to go. You know what I'm saying? They were, a lot of them was living outside, living in the woods, living in camps, I mean, they didn't have nowhere to go. They didn't have food to eat. They didn't have, I mean, just that was the whole reason behind them creating the Freedmen Bureau. Okay, nearly 1 million black people died in that period. That's something that you don't hear that much about. Hear them talking about. Nearly 1 million black people died. I mean, more than 700,000. Black people died during that period. Mostly died to exposure, from being outside, died from hunger. Everything in that whole period, man. After the end of the Civil War, it's where when the Mississippi governor, the one I was telling you about, J.K. Vardaman, he was saying we got to hurry. He said, you see, without slavery, these niggas gonna die. They gonna die out. That's what he said. They were gonna die out because they ain't got the white man to take care of them no more. That's the shit he was saying. J.K. Vardaman. Because a lot of them died in Mississippi where he was from. But like across the whole Southern, the whole Confederacy, nearly 1 million black people, men, women, and children, had died from the end of the Civil War, like for that first year after. Nearly 1 million. Think about it, wrap your hand around it. Nearly 1 million.
Right. And that's why we have to even recognize that, to recognize like where we are, to because like it's not even that they were going with absolutely nothing. It was even worse that everything was against them on top of that, met with the violence and all of that stuff. And like you said, like nothing to eat and all that, and just intentions to keep black people that way. Even the Freedmen's Bureau, right? What they would do since black people couldn't read and write and all that stuff, they would trick them into going back to work for their own slave owners or whatever. And they also had peonage laws which was illegal under even European society before they even got here. Peonage was illegal, but they arrested you, which is owing money. You can be arrested for owing a debt, and then a bunch of vagrancy laws. And then if your parents are arrested and you're like 14 or 12 or something, then you would automatically go back to your former slave owner because you were not an adult or whatever, and your parents were arrested for being homeless, even though they were just sent out there, you know what I'm saying, with nothing and everything took from them. But anyway.
Even in northern states like Wyoming, schools were separated for black and white children. In 1877, Ohio passed a law to forbid anyone of pure white blood from marrying or having illicit carnal intercourse with anyone who had a distinct visible mixture of Negro blood. By the time Reconstruction was officially over, the groundwork for Jim Crow was already established. When the 45th Congress met in 1877, only 3 members were black. Rutherford B. Hayes also appointed Frederick Douglass as the first black U.S. Marshal in D.C., and Henry O. Flipper also became the first black person to graduate from the West Point Military Academy in 1877. Many black people moved from Kentucky to western Kansas. Hundreds of black towns were established, including the town of Nicodemus. They built businesses, churches, schools, and everything else they needed. However, the railroad was built around the town to make it harder for them to get supplies. By 1878, the first voluntary mass migration took place, and many people moved west. Within a short time, about 30,000 black people moved to Kansas. During a
All right, I ain't gonna keep stopping it because we'll be on here too long. But I could show you like black towns, but y'all should probably look this stuff up yourself. But it goes to show you, even in these situations, if black people can come together and create their own towns, right, then there's nothing stopping us today from putting our economics together. Whether we have nothing and we don't have no beauty supply stores, no grocery stores, no um restaurants in our community, no, like, even if we had zero, right, we're still coming from a better place than where they came from, and they were able to build their own towns. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely black economics is important. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure my brother can name hundreds of black towns, what I'm saying, that we can look at, because you got to understand, like, we look at Black Wall Street and that's it, but everywhere was Black Wall Street because we couldn't go into their stuff anyway. You know what I mean? But man.
During a conference held by the Colonization Council in 1875, black delegates discussed
All right, this is
moving
what y'all
west
like to
or
argue
leaving
about right
America for
now.
Liberia.
I started over. This is what y'all like to argue about right now.
During a conference held by the Colonization Council in 1875, black delegates discussed moving west or leaving America for Liberia. For many, moving to Liberia was unrealistic. However, many steamboat captains refused to take black passengers across the Mississippi River, and most black families were left stranded in Kansas. But the black communities there were already thriving before the Exodusters movement. The town of Quindaro was established in 1856. As additional people arrived in Kansas, more black communities were established near Indian Territory in what became Oklahoma. By 1878, so many black people were stranded in Kansas that Louisiana had to overturn legislation and allow steamboat captains to discriminate. In the case, Hall versus DeCure, the Supreme Court ruled against integration laws passed during Reconstruction. The court struck down a law that required integration on public buses by arguing it's a direct burden upon interstate commerce. However, Mississippi reversed school segregation laws and allowed black and white students to attend the same institutions. And in Massachusetts, Mary Eliza Mahoney became the first black nurse to graduate from the New England Hospital for Women and Children in 1879. Booker T. Washington returned to his alma mater, the Hampton Institute, to teach and mentor black students. The president also allowed black entertainers to perform at the White House for the first time. Marie Selica Williams was the first black woman to perform for the president after putting on a musical program for Rutherford B. Hayes. Between 1879
you want to say anything about that? Or not that, but anything that you've heard so far?
The only thing I would talk about is agree is like what you said. No, we talk about Black Wall Street. Wall Street, there were Black Wall Streets all over. We had plenty of black communities, thriving black communities, whether they was in South Carolina, you know what I'm saying? We had one in South Carolina that we dedicated, to the Republic of Haiti. It had a town called Haiti, known as Haiti. It was dedicated to in honor of Haiti. becoming a free nation, a free black nation. So we had this black town in I think it was in South Carolina called South Carolina called Haiti. Well, someone pronounced it Haiti. But like I said, but we had thriving black communities all over the place, man. I mean, Black Wall Street in Tulsa wasn't the first. We had a whole bunch of Black Wall Streets. Like you had said.
Yeah, absolutely. And even this here, Rutherford B. Hayes allowed black people to perform at the White House in 18 something. So, um, okay.
Between 1879 and 1880, more than 6,000 black people left Louisiana and Mississippi.
Now, see, this is the other part they don't talk about, right? See, because they still need your slave labor. Like, it's like if you start work, they don't talk about the other side, the money side. But if you start employing your own, that means they don't have you to employ as well. You know what I'm saying? That'll collapse them as well. The black labor force, let you not go to work. Let all black people call out for a week on the same days, you know what I'm saying, and see what happens. See, they're gonna lose that labor force, you know what I'm saying? That's on the other side of it. And that's another part they don't want to lose, you know.
Many white Southerners feared
I guess
losing
they'll
the black
use the
labor force.
immigrants, but
Although
whatever.
white terrorist groups pushed for segregation and re-enslavement, they used intimidation tactics, including violence, to discourage black people from leaving. The violence intensified so much, only one black representative was elected to the 46th Congress in 1879. Although white Southerners didn't want black people moving out of the South, South Carolina still passed miscegenation laws. The law declared marriage between a white person and a Negro, mulatto, half-breed, Indian, or mestizo null and void. Missouri also passed a miscegenation law stating, "No person with 1/8 or more Negro blood shall marry any white person." Mississippi called interracial relationships incestuous after banning marriage between blacks and whites. Meanwhile, in Africa, Europeans continued to spread propaganda. They claimed the issue was between civilized whites and savage African nations. Europeans convinced themselves Africans needed to be civilized while they pillaged and destroyed countless nations. The First Anglo-Zulu War took place in 1879. The Boers continued to move into territories already occupied by the British. As the leader of the Zulu people, Shaka Zulu, knew the colonizers would eventually come for the land.
Hey, brother, let me ask you this. Shaka Zulu, a hero or not a hero?
Okay. And the first part, like here's the information. When he was talking about the first Anglo-Zulu War in 1879, Shaka had been dead for a long time before that. Shaka, was assassinated in 1828. Okay, he was assassinated in 1828. So Shaka never fought a war against Europeans. He didn't know what he was doing. He was consolidating power among all of the black people, the Africans, the black people in that part of Southern Africa, because he seen what was coming. He seen that these Europeans were coming, that they were coming and they were going to be here to stay, and that they were going to take land, and that he knew that what we had to do as black people, as African people, we had to have a united force. We can't be this kingdom against the Europeans, or this kingdom against the Europeans, and then you're gonna have some other kingdoms who like, well, we don't like these Zulus, or we don't like these Ndebelés or these Swazis, so we're gonna be on the European side. So you know what I'm saying? But he's seen, in order to prevent that, he said, I gotta consolidate and bring all these jokers under my rule, under our leadership, because we got to fight with a united force. That's what Shaka was. That was a vision that he seen, because he seen the Europeans coming, and he knew that it wasn't no way that the Africans were gonna prevail, were gonna win, if they was divided. And so that's what I look at Shaka. He was trying to consolidate black power in the region because he seen what was coming. So to me, Shaka was a hero. Yes.
Okay. And like, yeah, you're right. And I was just saying, right, Shaka Zulu knew that the colonizers would eventually come, and as they predicted, they did. Now I'm asking you that because the tactics that he used to unite the people, I don't necessarily agree with how my brother was achieving this, and I agree with his vision. And he knew what was up, but I don't know. That's why I'm like, that's why I'm asking, a hero or not, you know what I'm saying? Because the
Okay,
way he
okay,
did it.
okay, check. Okay, I'm glad you said that. Cause see, this is a part that gets left out of a lot of out of the story of Shaka Zulu, or Shaka. And what was going on in Southern Africa that part in the 19th century, in the early 19th century, and leading to when the Europeans began making inroads. Okay, there was something that was going on before Shaka came to power, before he became, the leader of the Zulu people, or the Zulu nation. There was already a conflict going on in Southern Africa at that time. Okay, it was a conflict, and it wasn't started by Shaka. Okay, the whole thing this terminology, they call it the Umfakani. The Umfakani, it was spelled capital MW, capital MFE CANE. It's a Bantu word. It's called the Umfakani. The Umfakani. Okay, and the Umfakani meant basically like the uprooting. The uprooting called the Umfakani. It's called the Umfakani. It meant the uprooting, like an upheaval of people just going scattered everywhere, going everywhere. People running from battles. People trying to run the safety from battles. Now this whole thing, a lot of it was contributed to Shaka with his expansion, his wars, and him building the Zulu kingdom. A lot of time, it was wrongly contributed to him. But it wasn't contributed. It wasn't his thing. It happened before he did. Okay, you had this thing. You had this one. It was a matter of fact. It was a sister, a powerful sister. She's like a legendary figure in Southern African history. Okay, this sister, her name was Mantantasi, and she was the leader of a people called the Tolokwa people, who are an ethnic group, an ethnic group in Southern Africa, and right now in South Africa. Okay, the Tolokwa people at one time, like when Shaka was a young man, probably a teenager, when he was growing up. Okay, the Tolokwa people had went on a campaign of trying to consolidate power themselves. Okay, and I mean the Tolokwa people, they basically ran roughshod over a wide area of Southern Africa. But what is now, when you look at the map of South Africa, modern day South Africa, Mozambique, that area, they ran roughshod over people. Because they were trying to incorporate everything. Because see, the Tolokwa people also had seen that the Europeans coming. They seen them with the Portuguese in Mozambique, and they seen it with the Dutch and their colonies in the Cape Colony in Southern Africa, and with them growing, with the Boers wanting to go up into the rich agricultural lands they call the high veldt and stuff like that. And so the Tolokwa people, their leadership, they seen the same thing coming. And so before Shaka went on his military expansion, it was the Tolokwa people under the Queen Mantantisi. Look her name up, Mantantisi. Her name has always been associated with like disaster, because her army is like, she just like, okay, according to the information, the sources I read, that Mantantisi's army has destroyed 28 nations. Okay, now you know what a nation is in this terminology. In different ethnic groups. Like this ethnic group, that ethnic group. An ethnic group was a nation. You know what I'm saying? That's what they looked at themselves as, a nation. Like whether it was the Zulu nation or or this nation or that nation. Well, according to the information, the wars and things that she had initiated in that part of Southern Africa was so devastating that it disrupted a lot of people. A lot of people was going in different areas in this period that was known as the Umfakani. Okay, it was actually initiated by this sister. You know what I'm saying? By the Tolokwa people. And when Shaka became a young man, was becoming a known warrior, then later became his ascendancy as the leader of the Zulu people. See, this whole battle was already going on. And matter of fact, he also, if you remember seeing the movie, you probably seen they alluded to it some kind of way, where they had Shaka and his wars, and this one war they had with this old, wild, crazy, old African woman, where they had a picture of her briefly, but they didn't really elaborate on it. You know what I'm saying? But see, Shaka what he was trying to do, he was doing like nation building, trying to form his nation. And like he almost wasn't able to form the Zulu nation because of what was going on around him, because all the upheaval and things that was going on around him. You know what I'm saying? And he had other of those famous leaders that we know in Southern Africa, like from Sheshwig, and the different leaders, who of different nations over there, because they had to deal with the upheaval that was going on at that time that was initiated by the Talokwa people in this whole period that's known historically in Southern Africa as the Umfakani. You see, a lot of people don't know that context, and they just attribute all of this the massive the bloodshed and and the people being dislocated in the city. They always attribute it to Shaka, when actually it wasn't really instigated by Shaka. It wasn't him.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, now I wouldn't say that, but and some would say that like that approach probably should be met today, but I mean, he did kind of have a get down or lay down kind of approach to consolidating power, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, some would argue that that is necessary. Um, but all right, let's keep going. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And yeah, I wouldn't put the context of anybody being displaced on him per se, you know what I'm saying? Because yeah, for sure, I wouldn't say that. But all right.
When the British arrived in Zulu land, it was just as Shaka predicted. The Zulu met with a high-ranking commissioner in the British Army named Henry Bartle Frere. Acting on his own accord, Frere organized his troops and gave the Zulu people an uncompromising ultimatum with the intention of starting a war. He gave them 30 days to disband the army, give up many of their cultural traditions, and adopt his religion. He also demanded the Zulu people pay the Boers compensation for not moving in on their land. Frere essentially wanted to transform the Zulu kingdom into British territory. The king of the Zulu, Cetshwayo, agreed with two of the demands. He commanded his army not to fight unless it was in self-defense. Cetshwayo even offered 600 cattle to prevent a war. However, he asked for 30 more days to comply with the rest of the demands. Frere refused to negotiate and prepared for war. At the beginning of the war, the Zulu army fought defensively. With nearly 20,000 troops, they gained the advantage in the Battle of Asandalwana. The British suffered major casualties and retreated after the Zulu army got close enough to render them ineffective. The Zulu people hoped their victory would drive the British away for good and restore peace. However, it had the opposite effect. Although Frere started the war on his own, the British were furious about being defeated. They sent in reinforcements and weapons, including cannons, rockets, and Gatling guns. The British destroyed the capital city in Zulu land and captured most of the Zulu leaders in the Battle of Ulundi. Cetshwayo was exiled, first to Cape Town and then to London. All Zulu land was annexed by the British and made part of Natal. It was divided into several areas and given to white settlers. With the Zulu people out of the way, the Boers no longer needed the British. Within a year, they declared independence and took over the land. In America...
All right. You want to say something about that?
No. Well, probably the only thing I was there. I had a cracker pronouncing his name wrong. It was Kishwayo.
Oh yeah, that's the AI robot. So they're gonna perform stuff. RBG, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, what's up? What's up, fam? What's up?
Not much.
Yeah, I've been reading and listening about, what I'm saying, a lot of this, with the Boers and the British, all that. Like, the thing is, like, from what I'm thinking is, like, the Boers is kind of like the Jews is. I'm pretty sure it's the same people, right? It's like a mix of like European-ish people, Dutch, but again, it breaks down to them peoples who went in and did it, underneath, the curtain of the British, right? And so, like you said, like once them peoples got the Zulu out the way. They don't need the British, just like in Palestine. Once, you know what I'm saying, Israel got the land, they don't need the British anymore. It's like, it's funny how Britain gets played by these people over and over again, right? It's interesting how that works. And understanding how white people give certain white people sympathies and those people don't like to give them back. It's just the interplay about, how people, it's like needing unity on black side versus white people's or white people wanting independence out of that whole situation. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't care about those sympathies. They don't care about those cultural connections. They feel like they can do it by themselves. And there's a lot of interplay. It's like with South Africa and a lot of the protests going in now with black people, black South Africans trying to do extra about, just people, black peoples in particular, while at the same time you have, what I'm saying, it's like, how would I say, it's like the inverse of divide and conquer. It's like unite and dispose of. You know what I'm saying? It's like how would I say? It's like that's how a lot of these interplays come in. It's like the way that the British used the terms of engagement for the war, in how the British themselves was doing the most to try to like get this war going, and the British soldier just didn't care. You know what I'm saying, about the Zulus, and then it turned about, becomes fair play, where the Boers didn't care about the Zulu, didn't care about the British and all what they did. I just find that there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. I don't think that gets fleshed out. And about the Rutherford B. Hayes, where it's like, it's just like, Reconstruction's over, but I'm going to let this black woman play at the White House. You know what I'm saying? The token Negro. That's the beginning. That's like the beginning of the token Negro, where, we don't need you, but we want you in specific types of ways. You know what I'm saying? We don't want you in general, but we don't need you in general, but we want you specifically. That just something to add on to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say though, the token Negro has always been around though, like from the welcoming the pale face in to the cookout or to the bonfire or whatever they was doing, to the Stephen from Django slave, you know what I'm saying, this. But yeah, that's, you see, like at that point, you know what I'm saying, it's like when you look at Obama performance, yeah, you got black performers at the White House, we made it, but they was doing that in 1870 something, you know what I mean? Like, you got black performers for Rutherford B. Hayes, and then he went on to overturn the Reconstruction politics, I should say. But all right, we almost done with this part.
In America, the 10th U.S. Census was taken in 1880. The total population in America was 50.1 million, including 6.6 million black people, 13% of the population. As many black people migrated north.
And by the way, just for Cassidra, she always be like 13%. Since before 1880, we was never 13%. We was higher or sometimes lower. But since 1880, and I'm not saying it ain't true or it's not true. I'm just saying since 1880, we've been 13% of the population. I'm just saying. That was for Cassidra,
As many black people migrated north, Congress held hearings to discuss the Negro Exodus from the South. In a Supreme Court case, Strawder versus West Virginia, the court ruled Negroes cannot be excluded from juries based solely on race.
Yeah, I'll tell that to
By
my brother.
1881, James Garfield was elected president. Within 4 months of Garfield being in office, he was shot and died from his wounds. After Chester Arthur took over for Garfield as president, the 47th Congress met with only 2 black members in the House of Representatives. Booker T. Washington also founded the Tuskegee Institute in 1881. The Tuskegee Institute was a black vocational school, modeled after the Hampton Institute. Spelman College was founded in Atlanta, Georgia, for black women. But as black people in America made progress in certain areas, Jim Crow laws and the system of separate but equal became America's policy. Tennessee was the first state to pass legislation to segregate passenger railroad cars. Over the next 20 years, states including Florida, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, Arkansas, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and Oklahoma all followed suit. The law stated, any colored passenger who pays for first-class tickets is entitled to first class, but passenger cars must remain segregated. Although black people were offered the lowest quality service and products, they were often forced to pay more. In Atlanta, Georgia, black women working as laundresses organized a labor strike. They refused to work until they were paid higher wages. Within 3 weeks, the strike grew from 20 people to nearly 3,000. In response, white officials offered a non-profit tax status to anyone who started a commercial laundry service business. Everyone involved in the strike was arrested and fined, but instead of getting discouraged, black women stood their ground and inspired other workers to do the same. Soon black cooks, maids, nurses, hotel employees, and other domestic workers went on strike as well.
So you see, like even in 1880s, right, where black people refused, and this is just the commercial laundry service, right, to the point where they was ready to give a like, well, they're not even going to tax you if you started a commercial laundry service, right, because they needed black women work and black men work so much, you know what I'm saying? And there you start seeing black people start boycotting for higher wages and all of this kind of stuff, you know. And like I said, y'all add on anytime, you know. I'm just playing it to get through it, but y'all can add on to any of this stuff anytime. But we talking about now what we need to do with our dollars. We see in 1880 how effective it was. So imagine how effective it would be today.
Black workers, especially black women, going on strike was highly effective. It didn't take long for them to affect the economy. The white establishment was forced to acknowledge the importance of black workers and increased their pay. Still, miscegenation laws continued to be passed throughout America. In the case McLaughlin versus Florida, the Supreme Court ruled against unmarried interracial couples cohabiting. It was punishable with up to a year in prison and a $500 fine. If a priest, clergyman, or city official married an interracial couple, they faced 10 years in prison and a $500 fine. In West Virginia, the punishment for interracial relationships was a year in prison and a $100 fine. Anyone who performed the marriage ceremony was charged with a misdemeanor.
And by the way, you think Shaka Zulu was bad, you try to bring a black person into a white person into our community talking about I love them. All right, you're gonna be more than a damn fine.
Anyone who performed the marriage ceremony was charged with a misdemeanor and fined $200. In Alabama, a black man named Tony Place and a white woman named Mary Cox were arrested and convicted for violating miscegenation laws. They were both sentenced to 2 years in prison. In Alabama, interracial marriage carried a felony charge, but extramarital sex was only a misdemeanor. Although Tony and Mary weren't married, they were severely punished because black men and white women in relationships were seen as the worst union of all. Pace versus Alabama went all the way to the Supreme Court, but the ruling was upheld. The court said, this evil tendency could lead to a mongrel population and a degraded society. By 1883, Alabama
You know, it's kind of fucked up, but I ain't gonna say that about the mulattoes.
By 1883, Alabama's Supreme Court ruled criminalizing interracial sex didn't violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause because everyone involved would receive the same punishment. In 1882, the Supreme Court voided the Enforcement Acts of 1871. In the case, United States versus Harris, the court ruled the Enforcement Acts were unconstitutional because the federal government didn't have the power to punish crimes such as murder and assault. They said only local governments had the power to enforce punishments for crimes. Alabama and Tennessee also banned Saturday night special handguns. Essentially, only expensive handguns that most black people couldn't afford were legal. In Virginia, the first mental hospital for black.
So I want you to see, like, understand that though, right? See what they were saying, where federal government didn't have any power to punish crimes such as murder or assault. So when they kill you or beat you up or do something to you, right, the federal government doesn't have power. The local governments had the power to enforce punishments for crimes, you know. And of course, with the local all-white juries, which allegedly supposed to be banned right here, you know what I'm saying? But here we are today still seeing all-white juries, right? But they're telling you, right? They're overruling all of these acts and all of the stuff that we supposedly got, right? And so that this is affecting your legal justice system to this day. All right. All right. And there's two more
In
paragraphs.
Virginia, the first mental hospital for black patients was established near Petersburg in 1882. A black historian named George Washington Williams wrote History of the Negro Race in America from 1619 to 1880 that year. George's book was considered the
Hey, have you read that book, bro? Any one of y'all?
I
Yeah,
haven't. I think I've heard of it, but I
okay.
haven't read it.
Yeah. George Washington Williams was a bad brother, man. He was a brother. He didn't live too long, man. He died like, I think he ended up with like tuberculosis or something. Man. He died like he was in his 40s, man. You know, he was a young man when he died. But the interesting thing about him as a teenager, like 14, you know that he fought in the Union Army in the Civil War. You know what I'm saying? And after that, I think he kind of like got into the ministry. You know, a lot of at that time, you know, the ministry was a popular thing among a lot of because ministers was like the replacement of the tribal chief, you know, in our community, you know, back at that time. But anyway, George Washington Williams ended up being the man who called out the bullshit in the Belgian Congo with Leopold of Belgium, you know, his personal ownership of the Congo, the Belgian colony of Congo, they called it the Congolese Free State, you know, and with all of the bullshit that was going, all of the heinous, you know, things that they were doing, you know, cutting off men, women, and children's hands and legs and all kind of stuff. And I mean, they must have killed between, 10, 15, and maybe more, 10, 15 million Africans, you know, when Leopold ran the Congo as his personal property, man. I mean, you know, and right now today, you know, the Congo still like at the center of a whole lot of exploitation, you know, by American corporations, Western corporations everywhere, Chinese, everybody. You know, I mean, the Congo is like the richest piece of real estate in the world with all the minerals. So our very phones we got in our hand, we couldn't use them if it weren't for the coltan and cobalt, you know, that's dug up by little children and toddlers in the Congo right now. Well, just think about how bad it is now and think about how it was in 1885. You know what I'm saying? In the 1890s. You know what I'm saying? We've seen the pictures of these beheaded Africans and these Africans with arms and limbs cut off. All of this bullshit that Leopold, that devil in Belgium was doing. Well, the whole world, nobody knew about it until George Washington Williams. See, he made it to Africa. He went to Africa like, you know, as a minister, like a missionary Christian thing, you know, at the time, like I think with the AME church. But he went there and lived among the people on the ground. And see what happened. The Belgians was trying to get him to say something good. Say, well, we bring in civilization and Christianity and all that. But instead, he turned around and said, no, y'all over here killing these people. And committing genocide against these people. You know, to get all the rubber and all these raw materials from over there. And he put it on blast. And George Washington Williams was the first person to coin that phrase, crimes against humanity. And it was what the Belgians was doing in Congo, in the Belgian Congo, in the Congo Free State. No, that black man born here, I think he was born in Maryland. Well, he's the one who coined the phrase crimes against humanity for what was happening to our brothers and sisters in the Congo, George Washington Williams. And Leopold tried to get him. They tried to kill him. They was trying to kill him so bad, trying to get him there. He went to Booker T. Washington and told Booker T. Washington about it. And the Belgian king actually tried to get Booker T. Washington because Booker T. Washington was talking about it. He was spreading the message of what was happening. And they actually tried to get wanted to get him there, lure him to Belgium to kill him. A lot of people don't know that. Read about this Dr. Tyreen Wright's book about Booker T. Washington. But George Washington Williams, he was the one who coined the phrase crimes against humanity for what was going on to black people in the Congo. I'll land with that.
Okay, yeah, definitely, my brother. Yeah, for sure.
Yo.
Go
So
ahead.
let me get this straight. They were after Booker T. Washington. The Congolese was after Booker T. Washington, right? That's what you're saying.
The Belgians.
So the Belgians. Okay, this is the thing. This is the thing. My whole theory about a lot of this, like European colonialism, is that it was always done by the behest of the Jew, by the Jewish people, right? Even the whole like Berlin Conference where they talk about Leopold. It was a Rothschild initiative before that called the African I think of the International African Association or something like that. And they sent in some like European like naturalist type to go in around and like figure out what's going on, and then they had the Berlin Conference. Like a lot of this, the whole Congolese thing, that has to be Jewish, because I mean a lot of the Jews, they up in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and up in Luxembourg, and all them tiny little countries, in Germany. That's the boorish element, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm bringing it back to Booker T, because you have motherfucker Du Bois, you know what I'm saying? And the NAACP with your whole Jewish outfit, and that whole thing about trying to interrupt black attention to black causes, and interrupting that is always a little theme that I keep seeing that I feel like isn't really fleshed out in a lot of ways. The connections between how again, going on, how they're talking about in this book what's going on in America and what's going on in Africa, how the Nazis was influenced by the Confederates and all that. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of interplay in the back and forth between America and Africa, where they want to play this role of, again, bringing civilization, and then when black people see what's going on and it's called out, they want to then run interference on black people. They don't want black people to just actually have skills on their own, right? Because they need our wealth. No, they don't want Booker T. They want us to have Du Bois in the talented 10th and studying and, being all academic and high-headed. We don't want Garvey. We're gonna have Booker T going and sabotage that, because we don't need black people looking to Africa and having some enterprise in the matter and some businesses, especially with them skills that Booker T was trying to bring up. They don't want that. And I see a lot of this hidden hand going on that I wish was fleshed out a little more. I really do, about this. You know what I'm saying? I hear a lot of black people trying to say. I mean, it's funny how all white people's white people, but you got to see the gears amongst all that little ethnicity in that culture play. You cannot dismiss that. Even though you have ethnicities, you have religions, you have to see the filters and see the tiers amongst all of that. You can't dismiss white cultural separations, because when you do, you miss out on where the inertia of a lot of this stuff's coming from. That's just me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Even though it's like white people don't like to see black people as ethnicities. They like to see black people as one big nigga. But we know as black people, as much as I want to see black people unify, I just understand that there will, as far as like Africa, it's pretty fucking big. I mean, unless we can actually like get our real communications going and actually have the lifeline to talk amongst each other, amongst different parties on the continent, you know, yeah, I don't want to necessarily discount ethnicity, but I do want to see more of just national cohesion. You can have a lot of ethnicities within one political unity. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going on in Mali and the AES. I want to see that. And if you have the stronger, like meta political unit, a lot of the ethnicities, a lot of those distinctions, you know, those little relics and whatnot, they can still be held on to and they can be remembered, but they don't have to affect the day-to-day how we actually engage as people, because we just don't do things the same way. That won't be enough. At some point, what we do can't just be what we've been doing. And so I do want to just make sure I'm clear on that. Like the divide and conquer, you have to unify as Black people, like with the Mfumkande Kari or something, what was going on in Southern Africa, trying to unite. You got to be able to unite, and kind of like a lot of what's making us see things differently, we got to like shake that off and just like bridged a lot of these gaps. Okay, I'm done.
All right. And I'll just say this, right? Ethnicity will always be a thing, right? It'll always be a factor. Um, hell, God, a community like neighborhoods will probably be a factor. You know what I'm saying? Like we could be in the same state or the same city, and different neighborhoods play a factor, and it'll probably always be this way. And I'll put it this way, like I use the analogy of like the Olympics, right? Like you got all Black people, right? Just to use the term to inflame, to make y'all mad. FBA has a group, right? Ghana has a group. Jamaican has a group. You know what I'm saying? And we compete in the Olympics against each other, right? Shakari Richardson gonna dust them Jamaican girls, you know what I'm saying, every time, right? And we gonna celebrate it, right? But then when it comes together, the Jamaican sisters is gonna dust everybody else around the world, and we're working together when we are in the Olympics as the World Olympics against everybody, as Black people versus everybody. You know what I'm saying? And there'll always be that divide. And with them, the reason why, like, because I tell you in this whole thing, everything specifically that the shysters, the Jews, small hats, the hookno, whatever you want to call them, have done, right? But they have this same economic, or not economic, but they have the same ethnic differences, right? And the thing is, they all compete, and yes, they all have the Neanderthal blood, where they practice the same culture. You know what I'm saying? And they all, and yes, the shysters learned from the well, quote unquote American Neanderthals. You know what I'm saying? How to run their system, but they've all competed and compete with each other and would murder, fight with each other over us. But at the end of the day, they'll all team up with each other to come against us to make sure we stay in the position that we're in. You know what I'm saying? So when I be saying that, I get why people say like the shysters need, because we're gonna talk about the shysters and everything they've done, but I'm not gonna exclude just like when Haiti, they was like, well, we're gonna say, well, the Polish were the good whites, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna let the Polish stay. Like, no, none of them, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're all have this Neanderthal DNA, you know what I'm saying? Where the thing about the shysters, they would fit in, they would call themselves the Dutch, you know what I'm saying? When they build in Wall Street, you know what I'm saying? But it's really the shyster, the Jewish population that is with the West Indian Company, you know what I'm saying? They're the financiers, but they would be under the Dutch, you know what I'm saying? They'd be under the British, they'd be under such and such, but they're still all the shysters, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I still see too many Black people being like, well, the Irish, they were slaves too. No, the hell they weren't. That's why they can tell you they was Irish, and I can't tell you if I was Choctaw or Ghanaian, you know what I'm saying? I can't tell you where I come from. I know we argue about that, but I'm just saying, like, that shows you the difference, you know what I'm saying? And the poor whites, the Irish, and all that stuff were just as violent as the British, as the Spanish, as the Portuguese, as the shysters, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so I don't separate Neanderthal based on political party, where they come from, ethnicity, or none of that. Still got the Neanderthal DNA, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's important to talk about each in the like all of them, you know what I'm saying? Because if you name a group, I could tell you what they've done, whether it be Mexican, Arab, all of that stuff. I'm not just saying just Asian, all of that, you know what I'm saying? So that's the way I think about that, you know. You want to say something, bro?
Yeah, I'm just saying
Yeah,
in the middle of battle, they're not
okay.
taking blood tests to make sure you're who's who, and when you know what I'm saying, in the middle, in the heat of the moment, when you in an adversarial position, you won't get adversarial, you know what I'm saying, attention. That's all.
Yeah. Go ahead, my brother.
Oh yeah, I'll do. I want to bother you, man. But yeah, I can tell you one thing for sure. You ain't no Choctaw.
I might be Choctaw, brother.
Hey,
I
hey,
might
you
be.
ain't no
I might
Choctaw.
be
You ain't no Choctaw. You ain't no them limit.
the
What them
I
Indians
might be
was who lived?
Cherokee, brother.
Hey, what them Indians was who lived over there at Virginia?
So I don't even
Hey,
know. One of them
you ain't
Choctaw.
you ain't damn one of none of them.
I might
Hey,
be
you
Cherokee,
African.
brother.
You African. You one of them Igbo, Yorubas, or colored people. Yeah, I can say that you ain't got none of that because the white folks killed all of them when they bought your ass. So it wasn't none of them around. So you wasn't no damn Cherokee, no Creek, no Choctaw, no Seminole. So you can go on with that dang Callaway bullshit.
Anyway, I don't know where. I don't know my last name, brother. You don't know your last name. We could have been. Nah, I'll
Yeah, I
go.
know, but I know.
All right. I'll go to his last. Shouts out to brother George Washington Williams. Shouts out to who did I say to? Okay, yeah, I'm about to say Henry Highland Garnett and Sojourner Truth.
George's book was considered the first professional written history of black people in America. However, in 1882, Henry Highland Garnet passed away at the age of 66. The next year, the great Sojourner Truth passed away at the age of 86. Josiah Henson also passed away in 1883. Josiah was the inspiration for the original Uncle Tom's Cabin. He escaped slavery and helped many others escape as well. He even helped establish a community for runaway slaves. But the term Uncle Tom eventually became a slur many black people use against each other. Often, words with positive meanings to black people get hijacked and given a negative connotation. But accepting and internalizing negativity makes it difficult to unify and rise up.
All right, that's the end of the chapter. And yeah, that's why I call y'all clones now. But you want somebody was about to say something?
Yeah. He mentioned. I mean, how much research did you do on Henry Highland Garnett?
About I talked about him a little bit earlier, like in the parts where he was younger. But the brother we were just talking about it the other day. I'm getting confused right now, but damn. He
Okay.
I know he was leading some like he was talking about like do what you gotta do, like slaughter, you know what I'm saying? Like he was saying eye for an eye basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, if you read some of his reading, Henry Highland Garnett also, he's a brother. You know, he was part of the like the Back to Africa thing too. You know, he had moved. He left and went to Liberia. He lived. I think he lived there for about 20 years, but he had left and went to Liberia. He was good friends with Martin Robertson Delaney, and they was like on the opposite end of Frederick Douglass. Two things, and a couple of interesting things about Henry Highland Garnett. He was a man. Him and Martin Delaney, they were proud black men, proud of their black heritage and their African heritage, and they always talked about it. They always talked about it. Matter of fact, Henry Highland Garnett, he even specifically named his ethnic group that he came from, that his father came from. And so, they had a lot of black pride and consciousness even back then. But what the important thing that I want to talk about what they did, it was he, Bishop Alexander Cromell, who was also like a Pan-Africanist type brother. They were both from here, born here. Martin Robertson Delaney and some other activists, some of them from the Caribbean. And they got together and they had formed a organization. They had a big meeting up in New York City. It was in New York City. But the organization, I had the name written out. It was called the African something, like the Free Africans. It was the African something. But anyway, they had a thing where they was they were abolitionists and they were fighting to end enslavement of black people here in America, but also in Puerto Rico. I mean, in Cuba and Puerto Rico, also, in the Spanish territories and everything. They had this whole thing where they were fighting the enslavement of black people here and in the wider diaspora, in the diaspora of the Americas. Henry Highland Garnett. So he was a real bad brother, man. He was a bad brother. Yeah, he was a bad brother, man. Yeah, he was real deep.
Yeah, he started movements and did what he had to do. You know what I mean? Now, all right, y'all. Now this is the end. I had planned to do more than one chapter, but I know it's super late. But I still don't mind, because it's the since it's Juneteenth or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But so y'all tell me, do you want me to go through it? Now we will let it play so it'll be quick, you know what I'm saying? But do y'all want to look at the next chapter? Because I might not do this again for a while. But look, this is about the Berlin Conference, Scramble for Africa, which I was just talking about. Now I'll let y'all vote on it and say, do y'all want me to play this part? Because it's already 2 hours, it's already late. I could stop right here. But y'all say yes or no. I don't care either way. So I ain't doing that.
Play some of it. Play the first part of it.
All right, we'll see how far we go. All right, let me put this in here. All right. All right, let's see. Because I don't know what part I'll talk about it in, so we'll see. And shouts out to Raw in the building. All right, and Raw said yeah, so. All right, that's 2 yeses, so we'll just play until we get out of here.
The Berlin Conference, a scramble for Africa. As anti-miscegenation became the law of the land, it was increasingly clear the goal was to keep black men away from white women. But white males certainly continued to have their way with black women and girls. Although Maine and Michigan repealed anti-miscegenation laws in 1883, most states completely banned interracial marriage. According to the North Carolina Constitution, all marriages between a white person and a Negro, or between a white person or a person of Negro descent to the third generation inclusive, are hereby forever prohibited. In California, Civil Code, Section 60, outlawed marriage between white person and a Negro or mixed-race people. The Missouri Supreme Court ruled, it is stated as a well-authenticated fact that if the children of a black man and white woman, and a white man and a black woman intermarry, they cannot possibly have any progeny, and such a fact sufficiently justifies those laws which forbid the intermarriage of blacks and whites. Meanwhile, in Africa, the British gained control of Egypt from the Ottoman Empire in 1883. In America, only 2 black people were elected to Congress. Still, in 1883, Mary Ann Shadd Cary became the second black woman to earn a law degree. In majority black cities like Danville, VA, local governments were run by multiracial groups. Eventually, they created the Readjuster Party, the shortest-lived political party. After allying with black Republicans, they were able to take over local governments across Virginia. Before the party was disbanded, they abolished the poll tax and removed the whipping post used to punish slaves. They also founded multiple schools, including Virginia State University and Longwood University, and increased funding to help establish Virginia Tech University. After the Readjuster Party took control in 1882, many white residents were furious. They responded by creating the Danville Circular in the local paper. The Danville Circular talked about the injustice and humiliation white citizens faced daily due to the domination and misrule of a Negro party. As the election got closer, the Readjuster Party held meetings to organize voters. On the third night, a group of white residents came to interrupt the meeting and cause havoc. The argument escalated after a white guy accused 2 black men of tripping a white woman as they passed by. The black men allegedly responded insolently after being questioned. According to witnesses, the white guy threw the first punch, and it led to gunfire. About 20 armed white guys fired into a crowd of mostly women and children, and killed at least 4 people. As the crowd scattered, they were chased down individually and assaulted if caught. Over the next few days, An armed militia of average white citizens patrolled the city. Although they attacked the black community, white residents still blamed Negroes for the riot. Democrats used the Danville riot to intimidate black people from voting. They eventually won the election and seized control of the local government in a majority black city. The Tuskegee Institute.
All right. And there you see some early politics in America, you know what I'm saying? And by the way, the Republicans at this point was the Democrats and the Democrats was the Republicans. But have you heard about the Danville riot before?
Yeah, I read about it.
God
I
damn,
read it about
like
that.
ain't no way you heard about every one of these. Damn, bro, I'm impressed. All right, I'm keep
Okay,
going.
okay, but see,
Uh-huh.
okay, let me say this here real briefly. Okay, it was the book. It's a book where I got a lot of the information about a lot of those race massacres from. It was a book called 100 Years of Lynching. Okay, there's a book called 100 Years of Lynching, and that's what it covers so many of them. Man, they was from from East Coast to the Deep South and the Midwest, everywhere, man. So that's where I got a lot of the information from. I that book, 100 Years of Lynching, and also from Southern horrors. I know you familiar with Southern horrors. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think Ida B. Wells in this thing. And you brought up something about Juneteenth, like, and I noticed, right, because one my friend bought me an Ida B. Wells shirt. And when I say it, you know who actually said something to me? Like white dudes say something, especially older white dudes say something to me about who is that? I'd be like, yeah, Ida B. Wells, she did this, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And it's usually them who has something to say, you know what I mean? But all right, we'll get to that point.
The Tuskegee Institute reported 53 lynchings in 1883 alone. Due to violence all over the South, many black people were unable to vote.
Yes,
Several black
Tuskegee
city
Institute used to
officials were
report
forced to resign,
lynching.
and there were no black members when the 50th Congress met in 1883. With Redeemer governments reaching the highest level, all the progress and protection for black people was quickly reversed. In the civil rights cases of 1883, the Supreme Court ruled the Civil Rights Act of 1875 was unconstitutional and it was overturned.
Oh no, they overturned the Civil Rights Act, y'all. What we gonna do? We're going back to slavery. All right, I'm sorry. But listen, this is showing you the because there were black government officials who did things for black communities, right? So when I say redeemer governments from now on, y'all should know what I'm talking about because that's what I like to call them. Like y'all would say this government here is a particular redeemer government. Now I particularly don't separate Neanderthal by political party either, so I don't go by Republican Democrat stuff, but this is not new or anything like that. And even them overturning or repealing or doing things with Civil Rights Act is a reason why they keep having to pass Civil Rights Acts and reason why they keep having to renew these acts, I'm trying to tell
In a
you.
later one decision, the court ruled the 13th and 14th Amendments did not give Congress the power to regulate affairs of private businesses and individuals. One judge said, the 13th Amendment only applied to slavery and discrimination does not equate to slavery. He also said, the 14th Amendment had no power on the federal level and only applied to states, not individuals. There comes a time when after slavery a person must become a mere citizen and stop being a special favorite of the law.
There you go.
The only judge to vote in favor of the Civil Rights Act said, the 13th Amendment was supposed to do more than end slavery. It was supposed to establish a universal freedom throughout the United States. He added, how they treated former slave owners, compared to how they treated ex-slaves shows America's hypocrisy. Without federal protection, the discrimination and violence black people faced intensified and Jim Crow became the law of the land. Although a young
Now, slavery was horrendous, but this is when the violence started, right? Because believe it or not, this is when they started to do the lynchings and the murders and all of that stuff. Because before it was you was a white person's property. They would have to pay money if they hurt you. You know what I'm saying? But now, it's free reign on you.
Although a young Ida B. Wells usually took the train to get back and forth to her teaching job, Jim Crow laws in Memphis became stricter. One day, when Ida was returning home, she purchased a first-class ticket to ride in the ladies' car as she'd done many times before. When the conductor came to collect Ida's ticket, he told her to move to the coach car where men were drinking and smoking. She refused to move because she was a lady and belonged in the ladies' car. When the conductor tried to remove Ida by force, she bit his arm. He returned with 2 more white males, and they forcefully removed Ida as white passengers applauded. Although most simply accepted their fate, she refused to be treated as less than a lady. She sued the Chesapeake, Ohio and Southwestern Railroad Company for discrimination. She initially won the case and the railroad company was ordered to pay her $500 in damages. However, the Tennessee Supreme Court overturned the decision and forced Ida to pay court fees. Essentially, they ruled Ida couldn't be a lady because she was a Negro. Although she was even more inspired to fight against discrimination, Jim Crow and anti-miscegenation laws continued to be passed. Even though Arkansas
Now, y'all know I'm a fan of Ida B. Wells or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Now, this is one of the first things that she did, right? Now, we talk about, the Rosa Parks from the 60s or whatever, and, you know, that comes from the young sister here from Virginia. I can't think of her name right now, but I'm pretty sure y'all know her name. I'm pretty sure my brother knows her name, but I think it started with her last name started with a C, but anyway. Ida B. Wells in 1884 or whatever it was on a train. They was like, you can't sit here because you're black. And the Supreme Court said that you're not considered a lady because you're a Negro. Now, she fought them and bit the dude and everything, you know what I'm saying? Now, this is in the 1800s. And she was actually the first to sue, like, in the spirit of, like, Rosa Parks. And she initially won the case, but then they overturned it, and then they ordered her to pay, court fees and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that was just one of the first things that Ida B. Wells did. So shouts out to the great Ida B. Wells. So I had to say that. And RBG, you want to say something, brother? You've been quiet for a minute.
No. Actually, you had mentioned that whole like she wasn't a lady. That's okay. That's okay. That's going to be par. Like, that's just utterly dehumanizing. You know what I'm saying? Just once again, like she's not a lady. But I mean, what are we doing? Parsing out synonyms for womanhood. You know what I'm saying? We're parsing out synonyms for womanhood here. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's crazy. We're spending time on that to try to disenfranchise. That's all. That's all.
Facts. You want to say something, my brother? Anthony?
Yeah, I would just add on. I would add on to that. Now, remember what our other great ancestor, what Sojourner Truth said. You know what I'm saying? It's going back to what the brother was just talking about, the dehumanization, that they was trying to do to Queen Mother Ida B. Wells. But just think about it. When Sojourner Truth was having those conversations with those white feminists like Susan B. Anthony and them back then in the days. And what's that other old racist bitch, was it Elizabeth Cady Stanton, one of them. But anyway, when she asked that question, she said, "Ain't I a woman?" You know what I'm saying? You remember she asked, "Ain't I a woman?" Because these white women was talking about what's going on there. They was fighting for white women's rights. But talking about womanhood and all that, and then how the Klan, their whole premise, that original Klan premise was like the protection of womanhood and all this old bullshit. And she asked that question, she said, "Well, she asked them, ain't I a woman too?" And she basically was saying, I'm a human being too. You know what I'm saying? In which, they answer is really, hell no, you're not. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the power structure, the rule, the laws, and the legislation at that time. No, you're not. If you black, no, you ain't. If you ain't no man, you ain't no woman. You was a slave. You was chattel. You was still that. The whole, what I was getting to is the whole dehumanization, program, like the brother just said, man. The dehumanization. You getting kicked off a train, for nothing. just because because you black, you ain't white.
All the white people clapping and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what they do. They do shit like that to dehumanize you. No, the reason why they handcuff you, take you out the car and handcuff you, sit you on the side of the road, and then find out that it wasn't nothing, and then let you go. But it was a dehumanization ritual that they always have to do to let you know who you are, who they are.
Yeah, and we'll only go to where we get to the Berlin conference and Leopold and all of that. But yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, imagine a Neanderthal telling you you're not human, and that's But and this is no disrespect to Frederick Douglass, because this plays a part in what we're talking about, the dehumanization. And this brother ended up marrying a white woman after his first wife died, which caused a major controversy, which I didn't go into detail on, but it also caused a major controversy within the black community as well.
Even though Arkansas banned interracial marriage in 1884, Frederick Douglass married a white woman after his first wife died and caused major controversy. Still, black people in America continued to make progress. Judy Reed became the first black woman to receive a patent after she created the dough kneader and roller. An inventor named Granville Woods developed the Woods Railroad Telegraph to transmit messages between moving trains. Granville also received a patent for the telegraphony, which was a combination of a telephone and a telegraph. It allowed both voice and telegraph messages to be sent between trains. Granville later went on to create an overhead conducting system for rail and trolley cars to run on electric currents. Ultimately, he designed the third rail, which is still often used on many rail lines today. He also improved the automatic air brake used on trains, but his patent was bought and used by General Electric and the Westinghouse Air Brake Company. Some refer to Granville as the Black Edison because he had more than 60 patents, including for the first roller coaster. Many of his inventions were repeatedly stolen and patented by white inventors. Thomas Edison tried to convince Granville to work for him and often attempted to steal his inventions. Although Edison received the patent for the third rail before Granville, Edison tried to sue Granville twice but failed. To Granville, being called the Black Edison was an insult, and he refused to work for him. By the time he died in 1910, he'd sold many of the patents for his inventions to companies, including the American Bell Telephone Company. There were many great minds.
All right, so and this is a great black inventor, Granville Woods. They tried to be like, yo, the Black Edison. He was like, man, don't call me no damn Neanderthal. That lion stealing, you know what I'm saying, fool, you know what I'm saying. But we ain't gonna go too much into him. And also, who did I say before? Louis Latimer, another brother who I mentioned before that I didn't pull up before, who was
Hey,
a great
Forte,
inventor. Go ahead, my brother.
I just want to say briefly. Now, if you read about Frederick Douglass, at the end of Frederick Douglass' life, he was kind of viewed by a lot of people like an Uncle Tom. I mean, in the context of what we call Uncle Tom today. That's what he was at the end of his life. He was viewed that way by the black
Brother.
community.
Yo, did like with black people, when they looked at black people who married white people, how did they feel about that? Like back at
A
this
lot of
time.
times, it was because see, Frederick Douglass. Remember, Frederick, he was always like a militant integrationist, and he was always one of the brothers who you look at him today and say like he would be like a Cory Booker or somebody, or he was the kind that took up the cause of white women.
Oh, don't say Cory Booker.
Yeah, he took up the cause of white women, prison reform. A lot of stuff that wasn't black issues. You know what I'm saying? Like, as he didn't have black issues on the forefront a lot of the time. Because he was trying to appeal between. But then again, the whole tragic mulatto thing. You know what I'm saying? But Frederick, toward the end of his life, I mean, the readings all the information I read about him, that at the end of his life, where he had once been this fiery black leader and respected black leader, a lot of people in the community looked at him like as old Uncle Tom.
Hey, look, I ain't want to say nothing, brother, because I'm already in trouble. You already mad at me because I said for what I say about Booker T. Washington, but I ain't want to say nothing. But um, I you know what? Because the brother had to go through traumatic experience. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, and so there's some level of a pass or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Not a pass, but even during that time, I want y'all to understand that black people will look at the black leaders who would have white wives and be like, bro, can you know what I'm saying? Like the same way, can you have a white wife and still be a black leader? And many black people was like, hell no, you know what I'm saying? Why would you get with that white bitch? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, look here. But see, this is something else about it, though, man. Real quick, okay. Not only that, I mean, that Frederick Douglass was also, he was appointed like he was an ambassador too. He was ambassador to Haiti. And while he was in Haiti, I mean, they was talking about Frederick Douglass. Like, he gave all this information about the landscape, about the mineral wealth, about about the gold, all of the things in Haiti that he was giving back to the United States government, man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
he was basically like reporting, hey, yeah, they got this, they got that, they got that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? No, he actually did that.
Yeah.
As the ambassador to Haiti. You know what I'm saying? Basically like spying on Haiti. For America.
Yeah, and he kept getting these political. Rutherford B. Hayes, we just read about it earlier. Rutherford B. Hayes appointed him to a position in the American government for reasons like that. But I try not to get too deep onto Frederick Douglass because I know that he's a hero. But sometimes context needs to be put in there. So it looked like a little bit of me is rubbing off on you, my brother, when you going at Frederick Douglass like this. But all right,
Hey, well, Frederick Douglass and BC two different dudes.
I know. I never said it was the same. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, my brother. I appreciate the context that you put in. Is all I'm saying. So like those are things that people need to know, right? So, and yeah, the brother said, "Don't call me the Black Edison or whatever."
There were
All
many
right.
great minds like
I think we
Granville
almost
Bills
there
in
because
Black
we at
America, but their
1884
education
now.
didn't receive the same funding. The federal government required states with separate colleges for black students to provide land grants under the Morrill Act. 19 colleges for agricultural research, home economics, and mechanical arts were created for black students. The Morrill Act of 1862 gave each state 30,000 acres of federal land to establish educational institutions. Eventually, colleges such as Cornell, Iowa State, and Kansas State universities were founded. In the presidential election,
You look at that. White colleges founded off money that was supposed to be for. That's another thing, the Moral Act or Morel or whatever you say it. But we're not going to get into that, which gave them a lot of colleges, what I'm saying, and money that was supposed to be for you. But that's simplifying it too much. I don't like when I do
in the
that. So.
presidential election of 1884, Grover Cleveland was elected as the first Democratic president since before the Civil War. Cleveland appointed white Southerners to his cabinet, including a former Confederate leader, Augustus Garland, from Arkansas. Cleveland also nominated Lucius Lamar for the Supreme Court. Lamar played a big role in the Mississippi Plan of 1875 to use violence to keep black residents from voting.
And that's somebody you mentioned
Back
before?
in Africa.
And didn't you mention him before?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Lucius Lamar.
Back
All right,
in
here you go.
Africa, Germany finally joined the race for colonization. Germany acquired their first colonies in Namibia, Togo, and Cameroon in 1884. Until this point, Europeans were in a constant war for land in Africa. But for the first time, Europeans agreed to put aside their tribal differences and unite to conquer Africa. At the Berlin Conference, Europeans established a code among themselves and equally divided the land. Before the Berlin Conference, 70 to 80% of Africa remained virtually unconquered. But as the Industrial Revolution expanded, Europeans wanted access to more natural resources, and Africa is still the wealthiest continent on those terms.
Now, this is something that I didn't know before this, before I started learning stuff, that most of Africa wasn't even colonized before the 1884. You know how they always be Africa did this, that, other most of African territories wasn't even colonized at this point, you know what I'm saying, which I didn't realize. Um,
And not only their forecast was it not colonized, I mean, even after the Berlin Conference, look, even after that, okay, see, they had on paper, okay, we divided you get this, you get that, you get that. Even the Belgian Congo was not completely brought under Belgian control until like around 1915, 1913. It's after that period. There was still independent kingdoms there. And all over. Remember the uh the British in their conquest of West Africa, remember against the Benin Kingdom, the Benin Kingdom. Remember 1897, where all of those beautiful Benin art that you see in the museums came from that war, where they stole and put in all these European museums. Well, that battle was in 1897. The British defeat of the Benin Kingdom. No, 1897, 12 years past the Berlin Conference.
yeah.
The Ashanti Kingdom. I mean, that war was in 1906 or something. So the Ashanti Empire fell in 1906. You see what I'm saying? So they had on paper all these areas belong to you, but they still had to go and conquer it. You know what I'm saying? And take the land. And that was a much harder process. They fought into the early 20th century, when they had more modernized, weapons and everything and all kind of stuff like that. But no, at the conference, no, I mean the continent mostly was not subjugated. You know what I'm saying? And it took like decades after to fully subjugate it.
Yeah, and that's even to today, you know what I'm saying? There are still some that try to fight back, you know what I'm saying? And but yeah, like all of that stuff happened in the 1900s and the late 1800s as they expanded more, because they was really only on the coast and all of that kind of stuff. They didn't go onto the interior till much later. So yeah, all of that came later, but then they also had, development of certain weapons during these times, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially this time, they had the Gatling gun, which would, take down like 200, 300 people in a minute, you know what I'm saying? And black people, as being spooked out, let's be real, sometimes would be like, oh Lord, this is a sign from, you know what I'm saying, whatever. But not all black people did that, because still to this day, like, this war continues. This is what you got to realize. Like, it's not a war that was done 100, 200 years ago. This war continues as we speak.
Originally inspired by a gold rush, Europeans moved into an age of imperialism. They often fought bloody wars for control of African territory, but they decided instead of killing each other, their focus should be on seizing the land and enslaving the people. European nations believed it was their duty to control and civilize savage nations. They called it the white man's burden. 14 nations, none of which were African, were invited to the Berlin Conference. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, France, Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, Norway, the Ottoman Empire, and America all sent representatives. Despite people already living on the land.
By the way, that included America. Is the Ottoman Empire, is they white or they Arabs? What are they?
No, the Ottomans were Turks. Well, basically, they were like pseudo white people. They were Muslim white people. The Turks. They were Turks.
Well, what is that? It's like Arabs?
No, not like Arabs. They were like, how you have like like the Turks. They were like people from like, places like, Central Asia, the Southern Caucasus regions, places like that. They were they were related to like Iranian type people. You know what I'm saying? Turks and Iranians. No, they where Arabs are Semitic people, Semitic speaking people. They are the Turks and the Iranians. They different, but they kin folks. Like an Iranian. they all Muslims, but they're not all Arabs. You know, like, you know, an Iranian is not an Arab, a Turk is not an Arab, you know, but they Muslims.
So
But
they're
they were
like a
more like
mutt. They're like
they
a
were
mutt
people from
between
like,
Arabs and whites or something.
yeah, you know, because I mean, you know, they were like people from the southern part of Russia, you know, that Caucasus region, and that Russian steppe country area like that. There, like you see them places like that, you know, the Chechens and all these different kind of little people, the Turkic people. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got you. I see. And by the way, they say they got the most they're the most Caucasian of them all, by the way. So that's what they say. But all right, okay, I got you.
Despite people already living on the land, Europeans created borders to separate nations. The first thing Europeans did was open the Congo and Niger rivers to trade and made it neutral for all European nations. King Leopold of Belgium was able to convince France and Germany to stop fighting. They divided the land based on the best interest of every European country. They also looked to ensure that no European nation became more powerful than another. The British claimed Egypt to establish a route to India. The
They still
British
fight for
also
power
wanted to
right now.
control as
So
much land as possible in South Africa, as well as parts of West Africa, including Nigeria. The French wanted West Africa because the land was rich in gold, iron, and gemstones. They took control of the Ivory Coast, Niger, Senegal, parts of the Congo, and Morocco, as well as other African nations. Portugal took control of Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and Mozambique. Leopold and Belgium took control of the Congo and Rwanda. The four key participants in the Berlin Conference were Belgium, Spain, France, and Portugal. By 1895, only a few territories remained unconquered. Liberia was still considered a free nation, although America controlled it. Morocco also remained uncolonized, although France and Spain constantly invaded him. Ultimately, France conquered Morocco in 1912. The Orange Free State and the South African Republic remained free states as well, but they were already under the control of the Boers. The Ethiopian Empire was the only territory that kept its independence. Ethiopia defeated Italy in the First Italo-Ethiopian War from 1895 to 1896. Europeans used violence to institute their governments in African nations and didn't give the native people a say. South Africa introduced an apartheid system to segregate black and white residents. Although Europeans claimed they abolished slavery, after their invasion, the number of women and child slaves increased. Taxes were imposed on native Africans, which forced them to take on jobs to pay their debt. Native Africans were forced to adopt the languages of their colonizers. Europeans set out to destroy the culture and traditions of African people and forced them to identify and accept English culture. Europeans used cultural and language differences between Africans to divide and instigate fighting among different tribes. Using divide and conquer techniques, they exploited African nations and conquered millions of people with relatively small numbers. White philosophers and scientists.
all right, and RBG, you were saying something about that. You what you think so far? I think we almost at the part. I'm gonna stop. I wanted to see if I talked about. I know I talked about Leopold, but we almost done. But you was talking about the divide and conquer part. What you think about that?
I mean, basically, it's par for the course. I mean, the way that you see conflicts. You can be third parties to what's going on. You can get intimately, close to the various, playing the missionary, playing the intermediary, playing the referee in the, in the middle of conflict, trying to, stop fighting. We got other things to do. The way that you're trying to organize, but you're trying to set up and trying to, set up like trigger points where you can see where there's tension. And if you allow for the conditions that are temporarily, alleviating that tension, just little trickster stuff, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to play good guy, bad guy, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to just control just populations and geopolitics. That's what it all boils down to. What, just being able to control outcomes of people, to put yourself in some kind of like unassailable position. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like I can't be touched. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many the cascades of effects. They're trying to set themselves beyond all that cascading of conflict. You know what I'm saying? Like I see when people talk about divide and conquer, it can be it's about doing things that are out of place or kind of novel to try to get a reaction. And then once you see how people respond, you can start to sift out populations. Sometimes you can anticipate it, but a lot of times you can only see it after the fact.
Absolutely, I agree with that. You want to add something, my brother, or you want me to keep going?
Okay, yeah, okay, real briefly. Now, all right, now watch this here. Now, okay, let's go from right now today. Now, right now today, we always hearing about in these financial circles and everything, we hear about like the devaluing of the American dollar and everything, how the dollar is losing a lot of its power. And you see in these commercials all the time on TV about buying gold. Y'all, you follow me, folks, you see them all the time buying gold. You see these commercials all the time. Okay, see now what I'm doing, I'm tying it back in to what RBG was saying at first when his first prompt, when he first talking. Because see, I thought he was going that in, and then when we came back and we skipped to the other part, he ain't say nothing about it. I say, oh man, hold on, because see, I thought he was going somewhere with it. Because I was saying this, I was gonna tie it together myself. Because see, we was talking about the Zulus, about we asked about Shaka Zulu, about it, the things that was going on in Southern Africa with the Europeans, encroaching in Southern Africa. See, that's what I thought Black RBG was gonna tie it into. Because see, okay, well, what I just said about the gold and about the about the weakening of the American dollar, and now you're seeing all these commercials about gold, and now you're seeing this thing about the Sahel states, of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. What's their thing? What's the biggest thing in Burkina Faso? The gold. They got gold. Okay, now see, you have to go when you study it. You go back to the history in Southern Africa, and you have to go back to this European, this British guy, old pedophile dude named Cecil Rhodes. You had to go back to Cecil Rhodes. Okay, now Cecil Rhodes he was a businessman. He was a businessman. He was like into mining industry and all that stuff right there. Okay, now he was behind the British having a war with this African king, whose name was his father name was Umzilikazi. His name was I'm trying to think of his name. He was the Ndebele king. I think it was Lobengula. Anyway, but Logan, he basically ruled what is now Zimbabwe, the area of Zimbabwe. In this area, in the Zambezi Basin was rich in gold. Okay, now this motherfucker, Cecil Rhodes, he wanted that land because he knew about the gold, and he had already heard that Lobengula had hoarding a whole bunch of gold, a lot of gold up there. So he wanted to go see. They had been starting their business, this gold mining industry in South Africa at that time. Now, when the British had took over from the Dutch in South Africa, over the Dutch colony, and they're being expanded, they rule over the whole of Southern Africa. And this was when these motherfuckers, the shysters, came from the Netherlands and everything, and they started opening up these companies, these gold mining industries called like De Beers and all these places right here. De Beers and what's the food? The devil I'm talking about, Rothschild, Baron de Rothschilds. You know what I'm saying? Where they start making this part of the world, Southern Africa, as the center of the gold mining industry. Everything. Wow, these Jews, but you see you see all these mining companies, De Beers and all these companies that they have now. And everything, you see, and then you can tie all of that in with them putting a cornerstone on the gold market, and then also with Cicero and with these institutions that they have, like the Rhodes Scholarship thing. You know what I'm saying? Because that's all based in South Africa too. That was started by Cecil Rhodes them, and how you tie all these political, like these political figures like a Bill Clinton. You know what I'm saying? To some of these powerful political figures who all involved in that whole cabal thing. See, that's what I thought the Black Gentleman was going to at first. You know what I'm saying? How he was he was going to tie all that stuff in. But I'll be interested to see what RBG had to say about that though.
Oh, with the mining and the resources? Oh yeah, exactly. Like once you are, because again, white people didn't get into the inside. They're always on the coast. They to this day they can't get. They don't survive it. The heat, the UV, the malaria, and all that. They're just not built for it. They don't have the genes. They don't have the makeup. So it's like, as far as like the mining and stuff, like, yeah, it's just a natural extension of trying to figure out what's there, who's there, and getting them off of it, and trying to figure out like, okay, just sitting in, listening to people. Oh, these people had a conflict.
Hold up.
Yeah.
RBG, hold up just for a minute. What I'm saying, what I want you to talk about is about the connection between like the gold industry, the gold mining industry, which was started by Cecil Rhodes them down, and also like with the financial institutions out of Western Europe. You know what I'm saying? All those big those diamond and gold corporations and how they all tie in. And then, also with the Rhodes Foundation, like the Rhodes Scholarship thing, like with Clinton them, and all of that stuff that they mixed up in together. From Rothschilds, all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The Rhodes are British, right? Rhodes is a British name. The Rhodes Scholarship and all that's British. So I guess what it is that it's just evolution over the centuries of a lot of these things, because you can't collapse all of this into like this of a brief time frame. There's decades in life, generations in lifetimes of waves of you have the whole slave trade conquering part, and then that was again like 1500, and only up to really the late 1800s. Even the Ashantis, the British came in the late 1880s type. You know what I'm saying? That's the time frame that we're talking about, where they really came in with the Gatling gun and all that. As far as the finances, though, they don't know what's there until they have eyes and have people and hear. So that just ties into. You basically said it. You're alluding to it already. It's just, they don't know what's there until, they can, these white people didn't know about the coltan until, you have to know what's there. You have to see a piece of metal, like, y'all people find a rock and, just design and shaping, like, what's that? You know what I'm saying? You don't know unless you know. And to be there, to have someone there, it's just, as far as the financials, it's just, once the Europeans have the industrials, the financiers, you have to have the materials, and then you have to have value on it, and then you can trade against that value of the minerals. If you have a whole lot of substance, you introduce it to the market, you'll flood the market and you'll depreciate the value of it. When you have diamonds, though, it's like, they have diamonds and they artificially inflate the prices of diamonds, even though they're aware of how many diamonds that there are. You understand what I'm saying? They make it seem that they're scarce, but they're not really that scarce. You know what I'm saying? That's part of it. And then you have valuation on it that goes into finance, in which, just knowing and speculating on what's out there and who has it, and being able to develop an industry and just leverage. You know what I'm saying? It's a leverage. If once you have leverage, you can go into the people and you can affect change amongst the people. The whole economics of how much things cost. You're manipulating values. You know what I'm saying? It's a very fluid thing. It's very, time sensitive. It's like what people know, intelligence and surveillance and all that is very much tied to industry. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the You know what I'm saying? It's like that's why it's hard to like get a lot of like they need the industry, they need the economics to make sure that there's currency like currency flowing, like, or electricity currency flowing amongst the people so that the people can work and that they're energized, that they're doing the plan that's in motion. But you know what I'm saying? If there's currency fluctuations, then people get upset and they want to turn against, you know what I'm saying, the governments, and then the governments, you know what I'm saying, the people in industry will try to mollify that. And you know, it's just one big just shifting of just whack-a-mole. You know what I'm saying? It's, you know, in the mole is the government, and anytime the people, they don't see it, and white people, like, you know, the people quite don't get it because they don't see the tentacles. How it's a hydra of a lot of things, especially nowadays where a lot of the industries they really are working together a lot more than they did back in the day. I mean, this just the nature of, they know that they have to work with each other. They have to integrate amongst that European, you know, mega sense in order to have any kind of prosperity. It's like that goes into where, you know what I'm saying, well, I'm the white man, I have nothing to do with this, but naturally you sit there in an economy that consumes food and products that are from somewhere else, and you don't think about the valuation of how much the workers are being paid and all that. I mean, it's fluid. It's very, 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 I mean, it's the world dynamic. I mean, the more that you know about who has control over resources and how they went about getting them, the more you can anticipate what their next moves are. You know, I mean, you can go on and on again about it. As far as like Africa, it's just like this whole, you know, Africa's where it is. That's where all this new stuff is, and you know, the trying to replenish European society with new energy and stuff. I mean, it's you know, I don't want to exhaust the point, but I think you guys know what I'm saying.
All right. All right. And look, I think y'all find this next part interesting, and then we almost done. We're gonna
White
wrap it up soon,
philosophers
y'all.
and scientists created theories to justify why Negroes deserved to be exploited. Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species to explain his theory of natural selection. Although Darwin argued the first Homo sapiens were black, he claimed the white race evolved as the superior race. Later, his theory was coined as Darwinism and used to reinforce a racial hierarchy. Coupled with Johann Friedrich Blumenbach's theory classifying humans in 5 categories, their teachings led to a eugenics movement in the 1880s. The term eugenics was coined by Francis Galton in 1883. Galton based his theory on Darwinism and became a leader in the eugenics movement. Their goal was to improve the human species by encouraging the white population to breed and enforcing strict miscegenation laws. Eugenics became an academic course in many colleges, with funding from numerous sources. Supposedly, people of Nordic, German, and Anglo-Saxon descent had superior genetics. The eugenics movement.
Now I want to say this, right? Because and this was before Darwin and all that stuff, but a lot of the modern day ones use that whole concept of, well, like, because to them they're kind of stupid. They think evolution, because they come later, they evolved. Evolution means better when it doesn't. It just means different. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you're in a cold, dirty, dark cave and you don't get no sunlight, you become allergic to the sun. Unlike, well, I don't know, because they're the only things allergic to the sun, of course, but see, they're too dumb to understand that evolution doesn't necessarily mean better. And well, they'll find out when they get eliminated or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But and the thing about, even with the shysters, you know, like, even probably a lot of the rednecks now and the MAGA people wouldn't even understand like where their hatred even comes from and why they try to separate it, because to them, which is not true, you know what I'm saying, they're Neanderthals, you know what I'm saying, they come from Turkey somewhere or whatever that weird place is. But a lot of them would like think that the shyster's blood is tainted, you know what I'm saying? And guess what? Tainted with Negro blood, you know what I'm saying? So that's why they kind of look at them differently, and they have this superiority complex, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, they're just dumb, so they don't realize that evolve doesn't mean like coming later doesn't mean better. It means you lost something, in fact. You know what I'm saying? Which, it is what it is. But then we start seeing this eugenics movement here. Now, we go from breeding plantations when you're slaves to eugenics movements when you're quote unquote free, of course. You know what I mean? Um, all right, let's see here.
The eugenics movement called for strict
Well, and look, RBG in the back. He said, "I don't see, with the apes thing. The thing is, I wouldn't call them apes because apes don't Epstein their own children. You know what I'm saying? Like a baby ape is not going to go murder every ape in the school. You know what I'm saying? So it's disrespectful to call a Neanderthal an ape. Neanderthals are uh devolved, you see, like they come later, you know what I'm saying? So they're a different species, you know what I'm saying? And they're telling you this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if things evolve, they devolve.
Devolve, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what the difference, because they think change means better, but change just means change, you know what I'm saying? Things can change for the better or the worse, but to a European mind, they don't understand this, you know what I'm saying? Now, these next two paragraphs is basically what, and we'll stop after these next two parts, you know what I'm saying? But all right, so y'all might have something to say about this part, you know what I'm saying? So check it out with this eugenics movement that has been developed now,
The eugenics movement called for strict immigration laws for every other group. They wanted forced sterilizations for the poor, disabled, and anyone deemed immoral. Some popular black intellectuals, including scholars from Tuskegee, Howard, and Hampton universities, agreed with a form of eugenics within the black population. They believed in the concept of the talented tenth. They felt the black race could only be saved by its exceptional men. However, they felt the best Negroes were as good as the best whites, and the best of all races should mix. W.E.B. Du Bois allegedly said, "Only fit blacks should have children to eradicate the black heritage of moral iniquity." He also allegedly agreed with sterilizing poor black people or anyone he deemed unfit.
Now, I did say allegedly.
See, that's why I don't like Dubois. That's why I don't like him. That's why I know. That's why I know he's bullshit. That's why I know he's garbage.
I said
the
allegedly.
talented tip is garbage.
I did say allegedly, he said, now, before you go off. Oh, go ahead, RBG.
I'm just saying, it's just like there's something about Dubois that once I really understood, like it only dawned on me in like the last maybe 5-10 years. Like this dude was they always bring, if he really did say that, which I mean it could be, but maybe it's just paraphrasing. Really fit blacks. How do you define fit? Should have children. Okay, there's moral iniquity. You know what I'm saying? Like, morals and morale go hand in hand. It's always like, we know why we are here, why black people cut up. You know what I'm saying? To get something, we know why, because we stressed out with what's going on a lot of times. The hidden hand is of finance and all these, stringing on us and whatnot. He also said sterilizing for. Did he not talk with Margaret Sanger? I'm trying to figure that one out. I don't know if Dubois and Sanger talked, or some of those organizations that he was in was with them, other organizations. But yeah, I kind of was lit naturally upon seeing that. Yeah, that talented 10th. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, man, I'm good with it. I'm so good with it. Like, go to school and then work for white people, bro. That's the solution, bro. Just like, go to school and work for white people. That's the Dubois. I can't do it. I can't. That's all I got to say.
All right. And listen, a fit black person means one who accepts the ways of the Englishman, typically, and one who fits into white society, but not knowing we could never fit into white society. But brother, go ahead. No, go ahead. And I was saying, go ahead, my brother.
I just wanted to say one thing to piggyback on RBG. Now, you remember W.E.B. Du Bois? He was proud of his European heritage. You know what I'm saying? Remember Marcus Garvey said he always talk about, I got French in me, and French and German, and all of this. You know what I'm saying? Talk about all those various European heritage and bloodlines that he had, in his family tree. And he used to call Marcus Garvey ugly, or black and ugly Marcus Garvey. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, he had that that again, it's that tragic, that mulatto thing. You know what I'm saying? What Dr. Clark said, not knowing loyalty towards your father's people or your mother's people. You know what I mean? Thinking he better. The whole talented thing was the thing that they were better than 90% of black people. You know what I'm saying? And you look at who the talented 10 were. A lot of these old mixed race, brothers. You know what I'm saying? Who thought that they were so much better and intelligent than us. It was this whole new Negro movement going on. We trying to throw off the veil of our enslavement and our African past and all this old shit.
It's the boule.
Yeah. So yeah. So you got to know who you're dealing with when you talk about people like him. And like when I hear all my brothers who for the black socialists, they just love Du Bois. You know what I'm saying? And to me, I said that just goes to your mindset to me also. You know what I'm saying? Because we know who Du Bois is, man. We know who he is.
It's complicated, my brother. And I could say this, right? But that would be inappropriate in this time, so I won't do it. All right. But I will say this. Like with W.E. Du Bois, right, there is I'm definitely not giving excuses, but I'm trying to be lighter on the ancestors who are no longer here, or even mixed race people who are no longer here. You know what I'm saying? But I agree with most of the stuff that y'all saying, especially about the talented tenth and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Now the thing is, though, you know what I'm saying? Right, because he beefed with a lot of people, my brother. And the thing is, though, right, he had, black institutions and stuff for black people. And I'm saying, right, some people in history could get a pass if they had black institutions, if they said something like that. But, that's a whole nother thing. And W.E. Du Bois later on eventually came to.
Hey, Forecast. What you meant to say that again?
No, I'm not saying
About
that.
institutions? No, I'm talking
I'm
about
not saying.
institutions.
No, I'm not saying that, brother, because I'm not
No,
gonna go
because I
there.
didn't have a clear understanding of what you were saying.
I know.
You said,
That's why I stopped. That's why I stopped
well, could you
because it's
say it again?
inappropriate.
What? Could you say it again?
Because I
See,
don't want to troll you. I'm like, yo, I've been here too long to troll you right now. So that's why I'm stuck in between wanting to troll you and not. So I don't want to go there. But all right. I forgot. I even forgot what I was gonna say about W.E. Du Bois, right? But the thing is, right, he had many disagreements. But all right, we'll move on to the last thing before I say something that get me in trouble because it's already late. So we'll go on to the last part with King Leopold.
The King of Belgium, Leopold II, not only agreed with eugenics, he put it into practice. Leopold was unable to take control of any African or Asian colonies until the Berlin Conference. After the conference, he sent an explorer named Henry Stanley to the Congo region. Many African leaders Stanley encountered did not know his intentions and were tricked into signing away their rights and land. Leopold wanted the Congo for its resources, including rubber. His arrival marked a new period of death and destruction. Leopold called himself civilizing the people of the Congo and tried his best to cover up the crimes against humanity he committed. The Congolese people were essentially in a prison state. They had no rights, no freedom, and received no justice for crimes committed against them. They were only supposed to work for and live to serve Leopold. Leopold outlawed the Congolese language and traditions and forced Christianity onto them. He said all the vacant land and natural resources that naturally grew there belonged to Belgium. The Congolese people weren't allowed to gather or grow any produce unless it was for the state. Leopold's army grew to around 16,000. They were armed with Belgian-manufactured automatic rifles. Leopold laughed at the idea of paying the Congolese people for their work. He thought it was better to force them into servitude. The Belgians used whips made out of rhinoceros skin dried out in the sun. It ripped the skin apart, and 20 to 30 lashes were often enough to cause death. When Leopold's army raided villages, they burned them down and killed as many people as they could. As proof soldiers weren't wasting bullets, Leopold ordered them to chop off the hands of anyone they killed. The more hands a soldier collected, the quicker they were able to return home. The Congolese people tried to escape, but Belgian soldiers hunted down men, women, and children. Leopold paid soldiers to kidnap young boys to groom them for his army. Millions of people, including children, were mutilated and murdered. The breasts of women were cut off, and the men were castrated. Many people were decapitated, and their body parts were strung up to send a message. Leopold established the rubber system to extract as many resources as possible. Natural rubber is extracted from tree vines, mainly in the form of latex, but if too much is extracted, the tree goes dormant. Instead of tapping the vines, Congolese captives slashed them and lathered their bodies with latex. Once it hardened, it was painfully scraped off the skin. If anyone failed to meet the quota, their hands were chopped off or they were sentenced to death. Villages were destroyed whenever they refused to be enslaved. In some cases, villages were given unrealistic rubber quotas and were forced to attack others to avoid punishment. When Belgian soldiers raided villages, they beheaded the men and strung up their bodies. The bodies of women and children were tied together and hung in the form of a cross. By 1902, at least 44 chiefs were locked in the same prison. The conditions in the prisons were...
And there's a lot that was said right there, but I'll say that again. The bodies of women and children were tied together and hung in the form of a cross, right? Just as a...
The bodies of women and children were tied together and hung in the form of a cross. By 1902, at least 44 chiefs were locked in the same prison. The conditions in the prisons were so poor, 3 out of 10 people died per day. Leopold extracted a fortune from the Congo. As the demand for rubber continued to rise, he also exploited the land for its ivory. Most of the money and major structures Belgium has today are from the blood money they sucked out of Africa. Leopold's army raped every woman they found attractive. One woman refused to be with anyone but her husband, so they stabbed her in her vagina with a stake, then shot her to death. They committed so many atrocities in the Congo, other Europeans condemned Leopold's actions. Many called for him to be charged and hung for his crimes to end his reign of terror. Leopold II was the face of genocide and crimes against humanity decades before Hitler. When Leopold died in 1909, some estimate he was responsible for nearly 10 to 15 million deaths. To this day, the Congo still hasn't recovered from the largest single massacre in African history. Statues were even put up in the Congo in honor of Leopold. Although he never actually set foot in the Congo to see the damage he caused, he felt justified because he civilized the savages. He also made Belgium wealthy, and they continued to force people to mine for diamonds and gold for decades. The Congolese people were restricted in education and forced to mine for diamonds and gold for decades. They were unable to vote until Belgium left the Congo in 1950. Just a year after the Berlin Conference, Germany took control over parts of East Africa, including Rwanda and the mainland of Tanzania. In West Africa, Germany was able to take Cameroon and Togo. They also acquired parts of Namibia in southwest Africa. France gained control of Madagascar, parts of Morocco, Algeria, the Congo, and Chad. However, most of the land France took was on the coast, including Senegal, Niger, and parts of the Ivory Coast. Germany competed with the Royal Niger Company for control of Lower Niger. Eventually, the Royal Niger Company, backed by the British, obtained the southern Nigeria Protectorate. In Liberia,
All right, so as you see, and this is what he did, right? Of course, yeah, he said he was civilizing the people, giving them Christianity, you know what I'm saying? As he was like, don't waste bullets. So as proof, if you shoot a bullet, you better bring a hand back to me to prove that you didn't waste this bullet. You know what I'm saying? And they extracted so many resources that even right now that's what their economy is still based off of. You know what I'm saying? And of course, he caused so much death and destruction. But this is European culture. You know what I'm saying? I tried to separate Hitler as a whatever among crackers, but coming to my realization of history, there's a little bit of Hitler in all white people, and a whole lot of Hitler and a whole lot more, in the words of my good brother.
Hey,
So
Dr. Collins.
Mm.
Hey, look here. I want to interject this real quick. That part where he was saying, well, the Belgians would cut off the hands of the Africans, of the Congolese people. Okay, at the same time, in Belgium, until probably recently, not too long ago, there's a popular candy in Belgium called chocolate hands. These chocolate hands. You know, it came from when they used to cut off the Congolese people's hands.
Yeah,
It
I've seen
became a
that.
choc.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a popular candy in Belgium.
Yeah. And look, it was like one woman refused to be with anybody but her husband, so they stabbed her in the vagina and then shot her to death. You know, and all of this for rubber and all of that stuff, but it wasn't just for rubber. And the way that they had to extract it, right? They was like, instead of tapping the vines, they made them lather it on their bodies, and once it hardened, they scraped it off their skin, right? And they had to meet quota, or they were sentenced to death. And if they, well, and a lot of times they would do that to like another divide and conquer thing, because that's what they leave out, right? Well, they were like, well, we would do this to you if you don't go and attack the next tribe in from you, probably because they couldn't even reach it themselves, you know what I'm saying? So what they would do is like say, well, we'll give you freedom, or we'll lay off of you, or whatever lie that they tell you if you go conquer the next man, you know what I'm saying, and the next territory. And then we looking at it at each other like, hey, we conquering each other, but really they like trying to escape slavery and escape all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, just the way that they extracted it, let alone all of the rape and just regular murder they was doing. But I matter of fact, we almost done, so we might as well finish it since and this will probably be the last part for a while that I'll read from this book until we done.
In
Until it's
Liberia, Edward Wilmot Blyden campaigned for president. After he was defeated, he exiled himself to Sierra Leone. Edward was one of the original Pan-Africanists, although the term wasn't coined yet. He wrote books about global unity among black people as early as 1856. Edward was born in the Virgin Islands to...
Did y'all read his book? Edward Wilmot Blyden?
Yeah, I read this book. As a matter of fact, y'all go ahead. I'm gonna go. I got one. I got one in my library right now. I'm gonna go get it and bring it to you.
I already knew he was gonna say yeah.
He wrote books about global unity among black people as early as 1856. Edward was born in the Virgin Islands to free parents who taught him how to read and write. After becoming a teacher, he applied to teach at American universities such as Rutgers, but was denied because he was black. He eventually left for Liberia in 1850. Edward challenged the pseudo-science regarding black inferiority. He also challenged the black and mulatto elites for trying to monopolize power in Liberia against the best interest of the people. Edward studied African culture before colonization, looking for a solution. After becoming Liberia's Secretary of State, he called for skilled black workers and intelligent people to emigrate to Liberia and help make it a powerful black nation. However, Liberia's elite were completely opposed and may be part of the reason he lost the election.
All right, you showing this book? You on mute if you saying something, my brother.
No, I was just showing you the book. This
Oh, okay,
is Christianity, Islam, and the Negro by Edward Wilmot Blyden.
Called what?
You see it?
It's small on my screen right now because I'm sharing the screen, but yeah, they can see it though.
Getting everything we've got today will pay off tomorrow.
All right.
Forwards from 250.
But you see here, the brother called out the elite black people too. You know what I'm saying?
However,
The
Liberia's
pilot to
elite were
10th, if you
completely
would.
opposed and may be part of the reason he lost the election. Edward believed black people should unite globally and return to Africa to solve everyone's problems. Inspired by the Zionist movement, he argued for unity in what he called Ethiopianism. He wrote several books, including his most popular, Christianity, Islam, and the Negro Race. Edward's work inspired people like Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, and many other Pan-Africanists. Back in America, another original Pan-Africanist, Martin Delany, passed away in 1885. Martin was credited with creating the Pan-African slogan, "Africa is for Africans." He was one of the first 3 black people admitted into Harvard. However, he was dismissed within weeks due to widespread protest from whites. Martin was also the first field grade officer in the U.S. Army. He was eventually appointed as a trial judge, but he was removed quickly. In Martin's second manifesto, he argued for black emigration, which led to the National Emigration Convention in 1854. He demanded black people accept nothing less than equal treatment. But in the South...
So you read Martin Delany's book too?
Man, Martin Delany was like my first black hero, man, you know, as far as in black consciousness. You know, he was the one, he used to get into debates with Frederick Douglass. Well, Frederick Douglass, they worked together. Well, Frederick Douglass is this famous statement that Frederick Douglass said. He said, Frederick Douglass said, I'm glad, I said, I thank God that I was born a man, but Martin Robertson Delany thanked God that he was born a black man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's how he was, man. You know, he was raging black. Yeah, you know, and he was a bad brother though, man. You know, we could talk about him another time because you know, I know we're on that, we shut on time. But he wrote many books. You know, he was one of the first one to write the books about the ancient Egyptian being black people and stuff. You know, he's a bad brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And his brothers like him is like why it's hard to say like, well, you know, some other people, you know what I mean? But like the brothers who y'all was saying about before, W. Du Bois and stuff like that, you know. Right.
But in the South, Florida continued to pass anti-miscegenation and
There's
discrimination.
only like 2 or 3
In
paragraphs.
1885, Tennessee passed a statute to allow well-behaved persons into public areas, but required separate accommodations for Negroes. Although W.E.B. Du Bois wanted to attend Harvard, he was forced to attend Fisk College due to a lack of resources. However, Du Bois learned a lot about race relations, especially in the South during his time in Tennessee. Still, in the face of Jim Crow, black people continued to make progress. By 1886, Norris Wright Cooney was elected as chairman of the Texas Republican Party. Norris was also appointed as the U.S. Collector of Customs in 1889. Some say he held the highest ranking position of any black person in America during the 19th century. By 1890, more than 100,000 black people were voting in Texas. At a political convention in 1888, a group of angry white conservatives attempted to have important black leaders removed. It led Norris to coin the term Lily White Movement to describe the trend. In the Cooney era, black people in Texas improved a great deal. He helped black dock workers form a union and increase their pay. He also focused on enhancing education for black residents. Although Jim Crow was in full effect, after chattel slavery, black people were still in a better position to help themselves. But black independence and self-autonomy only caused white fear to increase. Not only were black people no longer property, poor whites had to compete with more skilled workers for resources and jobs.
All right, that's the end. All right, y'all want to say something?
Yeah, I seen Norris Cooney. You look at him, You probably say it's a white man.
Oh, for real?
But yeah, I mean, he was, he was one of them real light skinned, brothers like what's his name, Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, and like what's the cat's name I'm thinking of? He was a well known writer in the late 19th century. He's like the first black writer to like to get his works published. His William Wells Brown. He was like like one of the first, well established black writers. He's a noted black writer. But a lot of those guys, like their fathers were plantation owners, slave owners. They were sons of former plantation owners and everything. There was Norris Wright Coon in there. A lot of times he looked just like a white man. If you see him, I mean, he looked just like a white man. The pictures that I've seen of him, and like as far as Edward Wilmot Blyton, when he was in Liberia, at that time when he was in Liberia, he was trying to run for office. They had the mulatto thing going over there too. What I'm saying? Because they had a period of time where you had these mixed race looking those Liberian people, black people in Liberia, they had like a monopoly on the power at one particular time, man. I think probably like around the 1870s or something like that, 70s and 80s, the 80s, that period right there. Because I remember reading about in his book about when he was trying to run for politics, in Liberia, and he was a bad man. That was a bad brother, man. We got to do more studying on Edward Wilmot Blyton. But yeah, he was a bad brother though, man. But yeah, he was up against when they said the Liberian elite, it was the mulatto elite. It was them who was basically running things, and he ended up going to Sierra Leone, staying over there, like basically, making it the rest of his life there. But yeah, I read plenty about Edward Wilmot Blyton, though, man. Bad brother, man.
Right, absolutely. Oh, you want to say something, RBG, before we wrap it up?
No, I've said plenty. You know what I'm saying? I'm just Anthony's. He's read a lot of books. I wish I read half the books that he's read, because right now I pulled up the one from George Washington Williams, the History of the Negro. I pulled up the ebook on that, and I'm reading that right now. So I'm trying to I'm going to try to look up some of them other books and try to find, so I can read the good copies of them. But I mean, just going back to I mean, I don't want to rehash. It's pretty late, I'm glad, I jumped in and spoke with y'all. Just it's good little build.
Yeah, hey, one good thing, one good thing about Edward Wilmot Blyton, though, this was a brother who was born here, born in the Caribbean. He was born in the Virgin Islands. Okay, he was a brother who basically was self-educated early in life. I mean, he had certain people, they helped him out. I think he lived in South America somewhere. He learned Spanish. He learned languages. He had a knack for learning and picking up fast. What happened? Okay, and though being raised as a Christian, and later in life, he wrote many books, like that book I have that I just showed y'all. It was Christianity, Islam, and American Negro. Well, a lot of times, like only knowing Christianity, then coming into Islam, the Islam that he encountered in West Africa among black people. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like Arab Islam. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, he for a while he figured, hey, this would be better for us than Christianity. But later on, as he evolved even further, he basically at the end he had went back to the African traditional belief systems, and he wrote he had a book about it, where he was saying that African traditional belief systems, our ancient systems that we had before Christianity and Islam, are better for the Africans. You know what I'm saying? He said, probably understood everything. It's better for us, to have our own indigenous belief systems and to follow our own thing. That's what he said. You know what I'm saying? So he went full circle. He's a man who was born, his parents were born in slavery. He was born in slavery. His parents were born as enslaved African people. You know what I'm saying? He raised up in Christianity and raised up in, immersed in white civilization, but found his way back home. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day saying, you know what? This Christianity shit, the hell with that. This Muslim shit, the hell with that. And found his way back to the African tree, to the root. You know, I mean, that just goes to show how bad a man he was.
Right. And see, that's the reason why we got to celebrate our black heroes and the black people who, you know, stand up for us. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been so many of us. It's not an individual thing, right? Because if they take any one of us out, somebody else is gonna come along the line and fill the same prophecy, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So, yo, I didn't mean for it to go this long, but I think this was a very good conversation. I appreciate my brother Anthony for coming on, putting the context, and my brother RBG coming on, you know, adding to the conversation. I definitely appreciate y'all brothers. Definitely shouts out to Raw. I know Raw's still in the building, you know what I'm saying? I appreciate you for listening. My brother Roy, for coming through. Jermaine Thompson, definitely Karma 804. Shouts out to Matron, everybody else out there. You know, shouts out to Cassidra. Make sure y'all subscribe to Cassidra channel, and Realm in the Bush, and listen to everything that she's talking about. You know, and since it's late though, I will say my last words will be let's see. These will be my last words here. I'll let the brother have my last words, and I'll let it be short.
All right, peace out. Take it easy, man.
All right, peace, my brother.
They have food every day, and I'm knocking on the door every day to eat, and they open the door. Let me see the party. Let me see like them throwing salami all over the. I mean, just like throwing food around. But they're telling me there's no food in here. You know what I'm saying? Every day, I'm standing outside trying to sing my way in. You know what I'm saying? We are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. After about a week, that song is going to change to we hungry, we need some food. After 2-3 weeks, it's like, you know, give me the food, breaking out the door. And after a year, then you just like, you know what I'm saying? I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting, you know what I'm saying? It's like you hungry, you reached your level, you don't want any more. We asked 10 years ago. We was asking with the Panthers. We was asking with them, you know, with civil rights movement. We was asking. You know, now those people that were asking, they're all dead and in jail. So now what do you think we're going to do? And we shouldn't be angry.
All right. And I hope y'all heard that. I couldn't hear it, but I hope it played. But yo, shouts out to my good brothers for coming through. Much love. I appreciate y'all. And as always, man, and by the way, yo, shouts out to y'all. And I meant to say to them brothers, you know, happy Juneteenth, especially since my brother celebrates it. So we did this one for, let's just call it a Juneteenth special, I guess, you know. So as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're gonna keep falling for anything.